Have you ever wondered what it would be like to witness the most spectacular wildlife show that ever existed on Earth? Picture this. Forests so dense and mysterious that sunlight barely touches the ground, populated by creatures so extraordinary they seem pulled straight from our wildest fantasies. We're talking about a time when giants ruled the land, sea and sky with such dominance that their reign lasted for millions of years. Welcome to the Late Cretaceous period, the final and most magnificent chapter in the age of dinosaurs. This wasn't just any ordinary time in Earth's history. This was when evolution reached its absolute peak of creativity, producing monsters so incredible that modern science is still uncovering their secrets. From predators with claws longer than baseball bats to flying reptiles with wingspans that could shadow an entire house, the Late Cretaceous was nature's greatest masterpiece. But here's what makes this era truly mind-blowing. Scientists estimate that during the reign of just one species, Tyrannosaurus rex, over 2.5 billion individuals walked the Earth. That's more T-Rexes than there are people in China today, and that's just one species out of thousands that called this period home. The Late Cretaceous wasn't just about massive predators, though. This was an era of such biological diversity that paleontologists are constantly discovering new species that challenge everything we thought we knew about prehistoric life. We had dinosaurs with horns that could pierce through armor, herbivores with thousands of teeth designed for processing the toughest vegetation, and creatures so bizarre they looked like they were assembled from parts of completely different animals. What I'm about to share with you will completely change how you think about prehistoric life. We're going to explore a world where fire-breathing dragons might have actually existed, where predatory insects hunted with the precision of modern assassins, and where the oceans were ruled by serpentine monsters longer than school buses. This isn't science fiction. This is scientific fact, backed by fossil evidence that continues to astound researchers worldwide. The Late Cretaceous period began approximately 101.5 million years ago and concluded 66 million years ago with one of the most catastrophic events in Earth's history. During this incredible span of time, our planet looked nothing like the world we know today. The continents were still in motion, reshaping themselves into forms that would eventually become recognizable to modern eyes. Imagine North America split down the middle by a massive inland sea, with eastern and western portions separated by hundreds of miles of water. Picture India racing northward toward Asia like a geological missile, while Australia and Antarctica remained locked together as a single landmass. Europe existed not as the continent we know today, but as a scattered chain of tropical islands surrounded by warm, shallow seas. The climate during this period was dramatically different from anything we experience today. Global temperatures soared far above modern levels, creating a greenhouse world where palm trees grew near the poles and ice caps were virtually non-existent. Even as the period progressed and temperatures began to cool slightly, the Late Cretaceous remained a hothouse planet where tropical conditions extended much farther north and south than they do today. This warm, humid climate created the perfect conditions for explosive plant evolution. The late Cretaceous witnessed one of the most significant botanical revolutions in Earth's history, the rise of flowering plants. For the first time in our planet's history, colorful blooms decorated the landscape as magnolias, roses, and primitive relatives of modern flowers began to diversify and spread across every continent. The forests of this era were unlike anything that exists today. Towering ferns created cathedral-like canopies, while cycads and ginkgo trees formed dense understories that provided shelter for countless creatures. Conifer forests dominated the regions closer to the poles, but even these were more diverse and extensive than their modern counterparts. Sassafras trees, which still exist today, proved their incredible resilience by thriving in this ancient world, demonstrating a staying power that has allowed them to survive hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary change. But the plant life was just the foundation for an ecosystem teeming with creatures that would seem utterly alien to modern observers. The insect world of the late Cretaceous was populated by predators and specialists that pushed the boundaries of what we consider possible in the arthropod realm. Consider the remarkable manipulator Modifica putus, a predatory cockroach that sounds like something from a science fiction movie, but was very real. This tiny monster, measuring less than 5 millimeters in length, possessed an elongated neck and a head that could rotate freely, giving it an almost supernatural ability to track and capture prey. Its unusually long legs weren't just for show, they were perfectly adapted for chasing down microscopic midges and other tiny creatures in a deadly game of prehistoric hide and seek. Even more terrifying were the Burmapagon flies, members of a group scientists have dubbed killer flies. These weren't your ordinary houseflies. They were muscular, bristly predators equipped with short, thick proboscises that concealed razor-sharp sucking apparatus. These aerial assassins would wait motionless in ambush, then strike with lightning speed to capture prey on the wing. Their hunting techniques were so effective that they dominated the skies above the Cretaceous forests. The aquatic environments of the late Cretaceous were equally spectacular and dangerous. Warm seas and lakes provided the perfect breeding grounds for an explosion of marine life that included both familiar and utterly bizarre creatures. Modern sharks began to appear alongside stingrays and countless species of bony fish, while the ocean floor became home to thriving communities of sea urchins and starfish. Coral reefs expanded across the tropical seas, creating underwater cities that rivaled anything we see in today's oceans. But the true rulers of the late Cretaceous seas were the mosasaurs, massive marine reptiles that replaced the earlier ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs as the ocean's apex predators. These weren't just large lizards that happened to live in water. They were perfectly adapted marine monsters that could reach lengths of over 56 feet. Some species were even larger, creating a marine ecosystem where giants preyed upon giants in an endless cycle of predation. Mosasaurs were the ultimate marine predators, combining the stealth of a crocodile with the power of a killer whale. Their massive jaws were lined with teeth specifically designed for cutting and crushing, while their powerful jaw muscles could deliver bite forces that could shatter the shells of the largest marine turtles. These creatures weren't picky eaters either. They would hunt everything from small fish to other marine reptiles, and they weren't above cannibalism when the opportunity arose. What made mosasaurs particularly terrifying was their hunting strategy. Unlike modern marine predators that might swallow prey whole, mosasaurs would systematically dismember their victims, tearing them apart into manageable pieces before consumption. Fossil evidence shows bite marks and severed bones that paint a picture of methodical, almost ritualistic feeding behaviors that speak to intelligence and planning far beyond what we might expect from a marine reptile. The skies above this ancient world were equally dominated by giants. While small birds and their predecessors like Archaeopteryx fluttered through the forests, the true masters of the late Cretaceous skies were the pterosaurs, flying reptiles that had evolved to fill every conceivable aerial niche. The most spectacular of these aerial giants was Quetzalcoatlus, a pterosaur so large that it challenges our understanding of what's possible in powered flight. With wingspans reaching 52 feet, these creatures were larger than many modern aircraft. Despite their enormous size, they weighed only about 150 pounds, their bones hollowed and strengthened through millions of years of evolutionary refinement. But Quetzalcoatlus wasn't just a glider coasting on thermals. These giants were active flyers capable of both powered flight and effortless soaring. Even more remarkably, they were equally at home on the ground, where they moved with the grace and efficiency of modern hooved mammals. This dual lifestyle made them incredibly successful predators, capable of hunting both from the air and on foot as they stalked fish in shallow streams or scavenged carrion like massive winged vultures. The ground-dwelling dinosaurs of the late Cretaceous represent evolution's most audacious experiments in terrestrial life. These weren't just scaled-up versions of earlier reptiles. They were sophisticated biological machines that had been refined over millions of years into forms so specialized that each species occupied its own unique ecological niche. Among the herbivorous giants, few creatures were as successful as the ankylosaurs, heavily armored behemoths that turned defense into an art form. These living tanks weren't content with just thick skin. They encased themselves in virtually impenetrable shells of interlocking bone plates that could deflect the most powerful predator attacks. Picture a creature the size of a small truck, covered head to tail in armor plating, with a massive club at the end of its tail that could shatter the leg bones of any attacker foolish enough to get too close. But the ankylosaurs were just the beginning of the late Cretaceous herbivore revolution. The period also gave rise to some of the most bizarre and specialized plant eaters that ever walked the earth. Consider the hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs that pushed the boundaries of what we consider possible in dental engineering. These creatures possessed up to 1,000 teeth, arranged in complex grinding batteries that could process the toughest plant material with mechanical efficiency that would make modern industrial equipment jealous. What made hadrosaurs truly extraordinary wasn't just their incredible dental arrays, but their elaborate cranial decorations. Many species sported hollow crests that functioned as sophisticated resonating chambers, allowing these dinosaurs to communicate across vast distances through a complex system of musical calls. Scientists have actually reconstructed the sounds these creatures could make, and the results are haunting melodies that echo across millions of years. But perhaps no herbivorous dinosaur was more intimidating than Tyrannosaurus, a creature that looked like it had been designed by a committee of horror movie directors. These giants stood up to 16 feet tall and possessed claws that stretched nearly 3 feet in length, making them look like prehistoric versions of Edward Scissorhands. Despite their terrifying appearance, these massive predator-looking dinosaurs were actually plant eaters, using their enormous claws to strip leaves from the highest branches and defend themselves against the period's numerous predators. The mystery of why a herbivore would need such massive weapons has puzzled scientists for decades. The most likely explanation is that these claws served multiple purposes: pulling down high branches for feeding, digging into ant and termite nests for protein supplements, defending against predators, and possibly even helping the animals rest by allowing them to hang from sturdy tree branches like enormous prehistoric sloths. Yet, for all their impressive adaptations, the herbivorous dinosaurs of the Late Cretaceous lived in constant fear of the period's apex predators. The Tyrannosaurs represented the pinnacle of predatory evolution, combining size, speed, intelligence, and raw killing power into packages that dominated every ecosystem they entered. Tyrannosaurus rex, the most famous of these predators, was far more than just a large carnivore with big teeth. These animals were sophisticated hunters with complex social behaviors, advanced sensory systems, and hunting strategies that allowed them to take down prey many times their size. Their massive skulls housed not just bone-crushing jaws, but also some of the most advanced brains in the dinosaur world, capable of problem-solving and strategic thinking that rivaled modern predators. But the Tyrannosaurs weren't the only deadly predators stalking the Late Cretaceous landscapes. The period also produced some of the most efficient pack hunters in prehistoric history. Velociraptors, though much smaller than their Hollywood depictions suggest, were lethal killing machines that combined intelligence, speed, and precision into a hunting package that made them among the most successful predators of their time. These sickle-clawed hunters weren't solitary killers. They operated in coordinated groups that could take down prey many times larger than any individual pack member. Their curved killing claws weren't just weapons. They were precision instruments designed for gripping and slashing that could inflict massive trauma with surgical accuracy. Fossil evidence shows that these predators were capable of bringing down heavily armored herbivores through coordinated attacks that exploited weaknesses in their prey's defenses. The diversity of predatory strategies in the Late Cretaceous was staggering. While some predators relied on brute force and others on pack coordination, still others evolved more specialized approaches. Some developed elongated snouts perfect for fishing in shallow waters, while others became scavengers with digestive systems capable of processing carrion that would be toxic to other animals. The competition between predators and prey during this period drove an evolutionary arms race that produced increasingly sophisticated adaptations on both sides. Herbivores developed better armor, more effective defensive weapons, and complex social behaviors that provided protection through group living. Predators responded by evolving better sensory systems, more efficient killing techniques, and hunting strategies that could overcome even the most formidable defenses. This constant pressure created ecosystems of incredible complexity, where every species was locked in an eternal struggle for survival. The fossil record shows evidence of epic battles between predators and prey, with bite marks on bones, healed injuries that speak to narrow escapes, and occasionally complete skeletons that preserve the final moments of these ancient conflicts. The smaller creatures of the late Cretaceous were equally fascinating, though often overshadowed by their gigantic contemporaries. Early mammals, though still relatively small and inconspicuous, were already showing signs of the diversity that would eventually allow them to inherit the Earth. These weren't just generic furry creatures. They included gliders, swimmers, diggers, and even some that showed early signs of the specialized feeding strategies that would define mammalian evolution. Some of these early mammals were developing the complex tooth structures that would eventually allow their descendants to process a wide variety of foods. Others were experimenting with different locomotion strategies, including some that may have been the first mammals to return to aquatic lifestyles. The late Cretaceous mammals were laying the groundwork for the explosive diversification that would follow the extinction of the dinosaurs. The plant life during this period was undergoing its own revolution. The rise of flowering plants created new ecological opportunities and challenges that rippled through entire ecosystems. These weren't just prettier versions of earlier plants. They represented a fundamental shift in how energy moved through natural systems. Flowering plants could reproduce more efficiently, grow more quickly, and support more diverse communities of insects and other small creatures. This botanical revolution had profound effects on dinosaur evolution as well. New plant foods required new digestive strategies, leading to the evolution of increasingly sophisticated gut bacteria and digestive systems. Some herbivorous dinosaurs developed the ability to ferment plant material in specialized chambers, while others evolved mechanical processing systems that could break down the toughest plant fibers. The interaction between plants and animals during the late Cretaceous created feedback loops that drove evolution in unexpected directions. As plants developed new defensive chemicals, herbivores evolved better detoxification systems. As flowering plants offered new nutritional opportunities, insects evolved more specialized feeding strategies, which in turn created new opportunities for insectivorous dinosaurs and early mammals. The late Cretaceous world was also shaped by dramatic climate fluctuations that tested the adaptability of every species. While the period was generally warm, it experienced cooling episodes that forced animals to adapt or migrate. These climate pressures may have contributed to the incredible diversity we see in the fossil record, as species were constantly being challenged to evolve new survival strategies. The volcanic activity that characterized much of the late Cretaceous added another layer of environmental pressure. Massive eruptions could alter local and regional climates, create new habitats, and eliminate others entirely. Species that could adapt quickly to these changing conditions thrived, while those that couldn't faced extinction long before the final asteroid impact. Ocean chemistry during this period was also dramatically different from today, with higher sea levels and different patterns of ocean circulation creating unique marine environments. These conditions supported marine ecosystems that were both more diverse and more productive than modern oceans, providing the energy base that supported the period's massive marine predators. The late Cretaceous represents a pinnacle of biological experimentation that has never been equaled in Earth's history. Every major group of organisms was pushing the boundaries of what was possible, creating a world that was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying, diverse and competitive, stable and constantly changing. The fossil evidence from this extraordinary period tells us stories that seem almost impossible to believe. In China's northern provinces, paleontologists have uncovered footprint sites that preserve moments from these ancient worlds with startling clarity. Some of these tracks measure several meters across, left by creatures so massive that their individual footsteps were larger than modern automobiles. When scientists calculated the size of the animals that made these impressions, they discovered giants that stretched over 50 feet in length, moving through landscapes that we can barely imagine today. But size alone doesn't tell the complete story of late Cretaceous dominance. What made this period truly remarkable was how these creatures combined massive scale with incredible sophistication. Take the ceratopsians, the horned dinosaurs that represent some of evolution's most successful experiments in defensive architecture. These weren't just large animals with pointy bits stuck on their heads. They were walking fortresses whose every feature had been refined through millions of years of predator-prey interactions. Triceratops stands out as perhaps the most iconic of these armored giants, and for good reason. Picture an animal weighing as much as a modern elephant, but built like a living battering ram. Its skull alone measured over 8 feet in length, making it one of the largest skulls of any land animal that ever lived. This massive head wasn't just for show. It housed a brain capable of complex social behaviors and supported a bony frill that served as both shield and display structure. The 3 horns that gave Triceratops its name weren't simply defensive weapons, though they certainly could serve that purpose. Modern research suggests these horns function more like the antlers of modern deer or the horns of rhinoceros beetles, serving primarily in competition between individuals of the same species. Male Triceratops likely engaged in spectacular horn-to-horn combat, testing their strength and dominance in battles that would have shaken the ground beneath their feet. The skin of these magnificent creatures adds another layer to their remarkable story. Fossil evidence suggests that at least some species had bristle-like structures covering portions of their bodies, giving them an appearance that might have resembled enormous armored porcupines. This combination of bone armor, defensive weapons, and specialized skin coverings created animals that were virtually invulnerable to all but the most determined predators. Yet, even these living tanks couldn't always escape the attention of the period's apex hunters. Fossil skulls bearing the distinctive bite marks of Tyrannosaurus rex tell tales of epic confrontations between these titans. Some specimens show evidence of successful escapes, with partially healed bite wounds that speak to the incredible resilience of these animals. Others preserve the final moments of these encounters, with severed heads and shattered bones that demonstrate the raw power of tyrannosaur attacks. The hunting strategies employed by late Cretaceous predators were as diverse as the prey they pursued. While Tyrannosaurus rex relied on overwhelming force and bone-crushing bites, smaller predators developed entirely different approaches to securing their meals. Velociraptors, despite being much smaller than their cinematic portrayals, were arguably even more dangerous than their giant contemporaries due to their intelligence and pack-hunting behaviors. These feathered killers possessed sickle-shaped claws that could grow over 2.5 inches long, curved killing instruments that were perfectly designed for gripping and slashing. But their most dangerous weapon wasn't their claws or their razor-sharp teeth. It was their ability to coordinate attacks with other pack members. Fossil evidence suggests these predators could bring down animals many times their size through carefully orchestrated group assaults that exploited the weaknesses in their prey's defenses. The social dynamics of late Cretaceous dinosaur communities were far more complex than early paleontologists ever imagined. Evidence for herding behaviors, parental care, and even possible migration patterns paint a picture of ecosystems where relationships between species were as intricate as those found in modern African savannas or Amazon rainforests. Hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, developed some of the most sophisticated communication systems known from the fossil record. Their elaborate cranial crests weren't just decorative features. They were acoustic instruments capable of producing complex musical calls that could travel for miles across late Cretaceous landscapes. Scientists have actually reconstructed these ancient songs, revealing haunting melodies that once echoed across prehistoric forests and plains. Different species of hadrosaurs produced different musical signatures, suggesting that these calls served not only for long-distance communication, but also for species recognition and mate selection. Imagine vast herds of these musical giants moving across the landscape, their calls creating prehistoric symphonies that announce their presence to friends and foes alike. The feeding strategies of these duck-billed giants were equally impressive. Their mouths contained some of the most sophisticated dental batteries ever evolved, with hundreds or even thousands of teeth arranged in complex grinding surfaces that could process the toughest plant materials. As teeth wore down from constant use, new ones moved into position from below, creating a conveyor belt system that ensured these animals always had sharp, effective cutting and grinding surfaces. This dental sophistication allowed hadrosaurs to exploit plant resources that were unavailable to other herbivores. They could process fibrous stems, tough leaves, and even woody material that would have been indigestible to animals with simpler dental arrangements. This feeding versatility made them incredibly successful, and their fossils are among the most common dinosaur remains found in late Cretaceous rock formations worldwide. The diversity of body plans among late Cretaceous dinosaurs reflects the incredible variety of ecological niches available during this period. While some species specialized in processing low-growing vegetation, others evolved to reach the highest tree branches. Some became aquatic specialists, spending much of their time in rivers and lakes, while others adapted to life in arid environments where water was scarce. Consider the remarkable Parasaurolophus, a hadrosaur whose elongated cranial crest functioned as a sophisticated musical instrument. The internal structure of these crests contained complex air passages that could produce a range of tones and harmonics. Different species had different crest shapes, each producing its own distinctive musical signature that could be heard across vast distances. These acoustic adaptations suggest social structures of remarkable complexity. Large herds could coordinate their movements across enormous territories, with individuals able to maintain contact even when separated by miles of dense forest. Parents could call to their young. Males could announce their territories, and danger warnings could spread through entire populations with the speed of sound. The predatory dinosaurs of this period weren't just mindless killing machines. They were sophisticated hunters with complex behaviors and advanced sensory capabilities. Tyrannosaurus rex, for example, possessed some of the most acute senses of any land predator that ever lived. Their enormous eyes provided exceptional vision, while their sense of smell was so refined that they could detect carrion from miles away. Recent research has revealed that Tyrannosaurs had excellent hearing as well, capable of detecting low-frequency sounds that would have been inaudible to their prey. This combination of enhanced senses made them incredibly effective hunters, capable of tracking their targets across vast distances and detecting hidden prey that other predators might miss entirely. The intelligence of these apex predators is perhaps their most remarkable feature. Brain endocasts from Tyrannosaurus skulls reveal neural structures that supported complex behaviors, including problem-solving, spatial memory, and possibly even rudimentary planning. These weren't just reactive animals following simple instincts. They were thinking predators capable of adapting their hunting strategies to different situations and prey types. Evidence for tyrannosaur intelligence comes from multiple sources. Bite mark patterns on prey bones suggest selective targeting of vital areas, indicating that these predators understood anatomy well enough to deliver killing blows with precision. Some fossil sites preserve evidence of multiple tyrannosaurs feeding on the same carcass, suggesting either pack hunting or complex social behaviors around feeding sites. The smaller predators of the late Cretaceous were no less remarkable for their reduced size. Troodon, a human-sized dinosaur with enormous eyes and a relatively large brain, may have been one of the most intelligent dinosaurs that ever lived. Its large eyes suggest nocturnal hunting habits, while its brain structure indicates capabilities that may have rivaled those of modern birds. These smaller theropods filled ecological roles similar to those occupied by modern wolves, wild dogs, and large cats. Some specialized in hunting specific prey types, while others became generalist predators capable of taking advantage of whatever opportunities presented themselves. The diversity of hunting strategies among late Cretaceous predators created ecosystems where no prey animal was entirely safe, regardless of its size, armor, or defensive capabilities. The arms race between predators and prey during this period drove evolutionary innovations that seem almost science-fictional in their sophistication. Some herbivorous dinosaurs developed active defensive weapons, including tail clubs that could deliver devastating blows and shoulder spikes that could puncture even the thickest predator hide. Others relied on passive defenses like armor plating so thick that it could deflect the most powerful predator attacks. Ankylosaurs represent the ultimate expression of defensive evolution, with some species so heavily armored that they resembled living tanks more than animals. Their armor wasn't just thick, it was intelligently designed, with overlapping plates that provided protection without sacrificing mobility. Even their eyelids were armored, ensuring that no part of their body offered an easy target for attacking predators. The tail clubs of ankylosaurs were particularly impressive weapons, consisting of massive bony knobs at the end of muscular, flexible tails. These clubs could be swung with tremendous force, capable of breaking the leg bones of attacking predators or delivering blows that could stun or kill smaller attackers outright. The physics of these weapons suggests that ankylosaurs could generate club speeds of over 40 miles per hour, creating impacts comparable to modern sledgehammers. Yet for all their impressive defenses, even the most heavily armored herbivores couldn't completely escape predation. Fossil evidence shows that determined predators found ways to overcome even the most formidable defensive systems. Some tyrannosaurs developed hunting techniques specifically designed to deal with armored prey, using their massive size and strength to flip heavily defended animals onto their backs, exposing their vulnerable undersides. The evolutionary pressure created by these predator-prey interactions drove constant innovation on both sides. As predators developed better attack strategies, prey animals evolved more sophisticated defenses. As defensive systems became more elaborate, predators evolved new ways to overcome them. This endless cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation created some of the most remarkable animals that ever walked the earth. The late Cretaceous period also witnessed the evolution of some truly bizarre dinosaurs that challenge our understanding of what these animals could become. Carnotaurus, a predatory dinosaur with horns above its eyes and tiny, virtually useless arms, represents one extreme of theropod evolution. Its skull was built for ramming attacks, while its powerful legs made it capable of incredible bursts of speed. At the other extreme were dinosaurs like Amargasaurus, a sauropod with elaborate sail structures along its neck and back. These sails may have been used for display, temperature regulation, or sound production, adding yet another layer of complexity to late Cretaceous ecosystems. The diversity of body plans and specialized features among these animals suggests that evolution was exploring every possible solution to the challenges of survival in this competitive world. The mammalian fauna of the late Cretaceous, while still relatively small and inconspicuous, was already showing signs of the diversity that would eventually allow these animals to inherit the Earth. Some species were developing the complex tooth structures that would characterize later mammalian evolution, while others were experimenting with different locomotor strategies and feeding behaviors. Reptiles, one of the largest mammals of the period, was actually large enough to prey on small dinosaurs, with fossil evidence showing juvenile dinosaur remains in the stomach cavity of one specimen. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of late Cretaceous ecosystems, showing that the traditional view of mammals as tiny, insignificant creatures living in the shadows of dinosaurs was incomplete. Other mammalian discoveries from this period include gliding forms, semi-aquatic species, and animals with dental specializations that hint at the incredible diversity that would follow. These early experiments in mammalian body plans were setting the stage for the explosive radiation that would occur after the extinction of the dinosaurs. But they were also creating their own unique ecological roles within late Cretaceous communities. The plant communities of this period were undergoing their own dramatic changes as flowering plants continued to diversify and spread. The coevolution between plants and their animal pollinators was creating increasingly sophisticated relationships that would reshape terrestrial ecosystems. Some dinosaurs may have served as pollinators for large flowering plants, creating mutually beneficial relationships that persisted for millions of years. The rise of flowering plants also created new opportunities for herbivorous dinosaurs, as these plants often provided more nutritious food sources than the gymnosperms that had dominated earlier periods. However, flowering plants also developed increasingly sophisticated chemical defenses, leading to an evolutionary arms race between plants and herbivores that drove innovation on both sides. The complexity of late Cretaceous ecosystems extended beyond simple predator-prey relationships to include intricate webs of interaction between species. Some dinosaurs may have engaged in cleaning symbioses with smaller animals, while others might have provided transportation or protection in exchange for other services. The fossil record hints at these relationships, but rarely preserves direct evidence, leaving much of the social complexity of these ancient worlds to our imagination. What we do know is that the late Cretaceous represented a peak of biological diversity and ecological complexity that has never been matched in Earth's subsequent history. The combination of warm global climates, high sea levels, and the evolutionary innovations accumulated over millions of years of dinosaur evolution created conditions that supported ecosystems of unparalleled richness and diversity. The volcanic activity that characterized much of the late Cretaceous added another dimension to the environmental challenges faced by these ancient ecosystems. Massive eruptions could alter regional climates, create new habitats, and eliminate others entirely. The ability to adapt quickly to these changing conditions was crucial for survival, and species that developed this flexibility were the most successful in navigating the environmental turbulence of this dynamic period. The stage was being set for one of the most dramatic transitions in Earth's history. Though the magnificent creatures of the Late Cretaceous had no way of knowing what was coming, they continued to evolve, adapt, and thrive in ecosystems that represented the pinnacle of prehistoric complexity, unaware that their world was about to change forever in ways that no amount of evolutionary innovation could prepare them for. The seasonal patterns that emerged during the Late Cretaceous created migration corridors that stretched across entire continents. Massive herds of herbivorous dinosaurs followed ancient pathways that connected feeding grounds separated by hundreds of miles. These migrations weren't just random wanderings. They were sophisticated journeys that required navigation skills, social coordination, and timing that rivals the great migrations we see in modern Africa. Picture enormous processions of ceratopsians moving across the landscape like living rivers of bone and muscle. Adult triceratops weighing 9 tons each would lumber alongside their smaller relatives, creating thunderous stampedes that could be heard from miles away. The ground would shake beneath thousands of feet as these herds moved between seasonal feeding areas, following routes that had been established over countless generations. But these migrations weren't just about finding food. They were complex social events that brought together animals from vast territories, creating opportunities for mating, territory establishment, and the exchange of genetic material between distant populations. Young animals would learn migration routes from their elders, ensuring that knowledge accumulated over millions of years was passed down through generations. The predators of the Late Cretaceous had adapted to take advantage of these predictable movements. Tyrannosaurs would position themselves along migration routes, waiting for opportunities to pick off weak or isolated individuals from the massive herds. These ambush strategies required patience and intelligence, as a single miscalculation could result in serious injury from the defensive weapons of their intended prey. Smaller predators developed different approaches to migration hunting. Packs of dromaeosaurs would follow the herds for weeks, constantly probing for weaknesses and opportunities. They became experts at identifying sick or injured animals, coordinating their attacks to separate vulnerable individuals from the protection of the group. These hunting strategies were so sophisticated that they influenced the evolution of defensive behaviors in their prey species. The communication systems that evolved to coordinate these massive migrations were nothing short of extraordinary. Hadrosaurs developed regional dialects in their musical calls, with different populations producing variations on basic themes that identified their geographic origins. These acoustic signatures allowed animals from the same region to find each other in massive mixed herds, maintaining social bonds even in crowds of thousands of individuals. The complexity of these communication networks extended beyond simple identification calls. Evidence suggests that some species developed warning systems that could spread danger alerts across entire herds in seconds. A predator attack on one edge of a migration could trigger coordinated defensive responses throughout the entire group, with animals miles away responding to threats they couldn't even see. The nesting behaviors of late Cretaceous dinosaurs reveal another layer of social complexity that challenges traditional views of reptilian intelligence. Many species established communal nesting grounds where hundreds of individuals would gather to lay their eggs in carefully constructed rookeries. These weren't random aggregations. They were organized communities with complex social hierarchies and cooperative behaviors. Maiasaura, whose name literally means good mother lizard, demonstrates the sophisticated parental care that characterized many late Cretaceous species. These dinosaurs didn't just lay their eggs and abandon them like modern reptiles. They constructed elaborate nests, incubated their eggs through behavioral thermoregulation, and provided extensive post-hatching care that could last for months or even years. The fossil evidence for this parental care is remarkable. Nests containing eggshells show signs of repeated trampling, indicating that parents regularly return to tend their eggs. Juvenile fossils found in association with nests show wear patterns on their teeth that suggest they were being fed by adults rather than foraging independently. Some nesting sites preserve multiple generations of use, indicating that successful nesting areas were returned to year after year. The construction of these nesting colonies required significant cooperation between individuals. Adults would work together to defend the colony from predators, with some individuals serving as sentries while others tended to their nests. The social bonds formed in these rookeries may have persisted throughout the lives of the animals, creating extended family groups that could span multiple generations. These nesting behaviors also reveal the incredible diversity of reproductive strategies that evolved during this period. Some species built their nests in elevated locations that provided protection from flooding, while others chose sites near thermal features that provided natural incubation. Some dinosaurs covered their eggs with vegetation that would decompose and provide heat, while others relied on direct brooding behaviors similar to those seen in modern birds. The eggs themselves were marvels of biological engineering. Different species produced eggs with varying shell thickness, surface textures, and internal structures that reflected their specific incubation requirements. Some eggs were designed to allow maximum gas exchange for developing embryos, while others prioritized protection from environmental hazards. The diversity of egg types found in late Cretaceous deposits suggests that reproductive strategies were as varied as the adult animals that produced them. The growth rates of late Cretaceous dinosaurs were nothing short of phenomenal. Some species could increase their body weight by factors of thousands during their lifetimes, growing from tiny hatchlings weighing ounces to adults weighing multiple tons. This rapid growth required incredible amounts of food and energy, driving the evolution of highly efficient digestive systems and feeding behaviors. Sauropods, the long-necked giants of the late Cretaceous, represent the extreme end of this growth spectrum. These animals could reach adult sizes of over 100 feet in length and weights exceeding 50 tons, making them among the largest land animals that ever lived. The mechanics of supporting and moving such massive bodies required engineering solutions that pushed the limits of what's possible in terrestrial vertebrates. The cardiovascular systems needed to pump blood through such enormous bodies would have been extraordinary. Hearts weighing hundreds of pounds would have been required to maintain circulation to extremities dozens of feet away. The blood pressure needed to pump blood up the long necks to reach the brain would have created unique physiological challenges that required specialized adaptations. The respiratory systems of these giants were equally remarkable. Some species may have possessed air sac systems, similar to those found in modern birds, allowing for more efficient oxygen extraction and helping to reduce the overall density of their massive bodies. These respiratory adaptations may have been crucial for maintaining the high metabolic rates needed to support such rapid growth and large body sizes. The feeding strategies required to fuel this growth were correspondingly impressive. Large sauropods would have needed to consume hundreds of pounds of vegetation daily, stripping entire forests bare as they moved through their territories. Their feeding behaviors would have had profound effects on plant communities, creating a complex feedback loop between herbivore feeding pressure and plant evolution. Some species developed highly specialized feeding adaptations that allowed them to exploit specific plant resources. Nigersaurus, though not from the Late Cretaceous, demonstrates the kind of extreme specialization that characterized this period, with over 500 tiny teeth arranged in batteries designed for processing specific types of vegetation. Similar specializations likely existed among late Cretaceous herbivores, though the fossil record has yet to reveal their full extent. The impact of these feeding behaviors on late Cretaceous plant communities cannot be overstated. Large herbivores would have created clearings in forests, maintained open grasslands, and dispersed seeds across vast distances through their digestive systems. Some plants may have evolved specifically to take advantage of dinosaur feeding behaviors, developing fruits and seeds designed to survive passage through reptilian digestive systems. The co-evolutionary relationships between plants and herbivorous dinosaurs created some of the most sophisticated ecological interactions known from the fossil record. Some flowering plants may have evolved specific relationships with particular dinosaur species, relying on them for pollination or seed dispersal. These relationships would have created intricate webs of interdependence that linked the fate of plant and animal species across entire ecosystems. The defensive chemistry that evolved in late Cretaceous plants represents another fascinating aspect of this evolutionary arms race. As herbivorous dinosaurs developed more efficient digestive systems, plants responded by evolving increasingly toxic compounds designed to deter feeding. This chemical warfare between plants and herbivores drove the evolution of sophisticated detoxification systems in dinosaur livers and kidneys. Some dinosaurs may have developed the ability to sequester plant toxins in their tissues, using them for their own defensive purposes. This kind of chemical defense is seen in many modern animals, and there's no reason to believe that dinosaurs couldn't have evolved similar strategies. The bright colors seen in some dinosaur skin impressions might have served as warning signals advertising chemical defenses to potential predators. The seasonal variations in plant chemistry would have created additional challenges for herbivorous dinosaurs. Many modern plants concentrate their defensive compounds during specific seasons, and late Cretaceous plants likely did the same. This would have required herbivores to adjust their feeding behaviors throughout the year, potentially driving seasonal migrations and changes in social behavior. The aquatic ecosystems of the late Cretaceous were equally dynamic and complex. Freshwater environments supported diverse communities of fish, amphibians, and reptiles that formed the base of food webs extending far onto land. Many dinosaurs spent significant portions of their time in and around water, either feeding on aquatic prey or using water bodies for thermoregulation. Spinosaurus, though primarily known from earlier periods, represents the kind of semi-aquatic adaptation that characterized some late Cretaceous dinosaurs. These animals developed paddle-like tails, dense bones for ballast, and sensory systems adapted for detecting prey underwater. Their lifestyle created unique ecological opportunities and challenges that drove the evolution of specialized anatomical features. The fish communities of late Cretaceous rivers and lakes were incredibly diverse, including both modern groups and extinct lineages that filled ecological roles unlike anything seen today. Some fish species grew to enormous sizes, creating prey opportunities for large aquatic predators. The presence of these giant fish may have influenced the evolution of fishing behaviors in dinosaurs and other reptiles. Crocodilomorphs during this period reached sizes and diversity levels that dwarf their modern relatives. Some species exceeded 50 feet in length, making them serious competitors with dinosaurs for the role of apex predator. These giant crocodilians weren't just opportunistic ambush predators. They were active hunters capable of pursuing prey on land and in water. The competition between crocodilomorphs and dinosaurs created complex ecological dynamics in areas where their territories overlapped. Some ecosystems may have been dominated by crocodilians, while others were controlled by dinosaurs. The balance between these groups would have shifted over time and across different geographic regions, creating a constantly changing mosaic of predator-prey relationships. Marine environments during the late Cretaceous supported some of the most spectacular ecosystems in Earth's history. The warm seas were incredibly productive, supporting food webs that culminated in marine reptiles of unprecedented size and diversity. These ecosystems were more complex and energy-rich than modern oceans, creating opportunities for evolutionary experimentation that have never been equaled. The diversity of marine reptiles during this period included not just the famous mosasaurs, but also long-necked plesiosaurs, short-necked pliosaurs, and various groups of marine crocodiles. Each group filled different ecological niches, creating marine ecosystems with levels of predator diversity that far exceeded anything seen in modern oceans. The largest marine predators of the late Cretaceous were truly colossal, with some mosasaur species reaching lengths that rivaled modern sperm whales. These giants weren't just scaled-up versions of smaller relatives. They possessed specialized adaptations for life in the open ocean, including modifications to their sensory systems, circulatory systems, and metabolic processes. The feeding strategies of these marine giants were correspondingly impressive. Large mosasaurs could generate bite forces that exceeded those of any known predator, allowing them to crush the shells of ammonites and other heavily protected prey. Their feeding behaviors would have had profound effects on marine ecosystems, controlling populations of other marine reptiles and large invertebrates. The social behaviors of marine reptiles remain largely mysterious, but fossil evidence suggests that at least some species engaged in complex interactions. Mass mortality sites preserve multiple individuals of the same species, suggesting either social aggregations or shared responses to environmental challenges. Some sites show evidence of different age classes together, hinting at possible family groups or extended parental care. The sensory capabilities of late Cretaceous marine reptiles were highly sophisticated, allowing them to navigate and hunt in environments where vision was often limited. Some species developed enlarged optic regions in their brains, suggesting enhanced visual processing capabilities. Others show modifications to their inner ear structures that may have improved their ability to detect vibrations or changes in water pressure. The breathing adaptations required for life in marine environments were equally remarkable. Unlike modern marine mammals, these reptiles couldn't hold their breath for extended periods and had to return to the surface regularly. This constraint influenced their hunting strategies and habitat preferences, favoring areas where surface access was readily available. The reproductive strategies of marine reptiles created unique challenges that drove the evolution of specialized behaviors. Unlike their terrestrial relatives, these animals couldn't build nests on land, requiring them to either give birth to live young or find alternative reproductive strategies. The fossil evidence for live birth in some marine reptiles represents one of the most remarkable discoveries in paleontology. The late Cretaceous period was also characterized by remarkable innovations in sensory systems across all major groups of animals. Dinosaurs developed increasingly sophisticated vision, with some species possessing eyes larger than those of any modern land animal. These enhanced visual systems would have provided significant advantages in both hunting and avoiding predation. The evolution of color vision in dinosaurs opened up new possibilities for communication and display behaviors. Recent discoveries of preserved pigment cells in dinosaur fossils have revealed that some species possessed brilliant plumage or skin colors that would have rivaled those of modern tropical birds. These colors weren't just decorative. They served important functions in species recognition, mate selection, and territorial displays. The acoustic capabilities of late Cretaceous animals were equally impressive. Beyond the well-known musical abilities of hadrosaurs, many other dinosaur groups developed sophisticated sound-producing structures. Some theropods may have possessed vocal capabilities, similar to those of modern birds, allowing for complex songs and calls that could convey detailed information about individual identity, emotional state, and intentions. The hearing abilities of these animals were correspondingly advanced. Some dinosaurs developed asymmetrical ear structures that would have allowed for precise localization of sounds, giving them significant advantages in hunting or avoiding predators. The evolution of enhanced hearing may have been one of the key factors that allowed smaller dinosaurs to compete successfully with their larger relatives. Chemical communication also played important roles in late Cretaceous ecosystems. Many dinosaurs likely possessed sophisticated scent-marking behaviors, using chemical signals to establish territories, attract mates, and communicate with members of their own species. The development of enhanced olfactory capabilities would have created new opportunities for ecological specialization and social complexity. The integration of multiple sensory modalities created perceptual abilities that may have exceeded those of most modern animals. Dinosaurs that could simultaneously process visual, auditory, chemical, and tactile information would have possessed significant advantages in navigating the complex social and ecological challenges of their environments. The technological sophistication of late Cretaceous life extended beyond individual sensory capabilities to include tool use and environmental modification. Some dinosaurs may have used sticks or stones to access food sources, while others modified their environments through construction of shelters or feeding stations. These behaviors would have required cognitive abilities that approach those seen in modern intelligent animals. The evidence for advanced cognition in late Cretaceous dinosaurs continues to accumulate as new fossil discoveries reveal increasingly sophisticated anatomical features associated with intelligence. Brain endocasts show enlarged regions associated with problem-solving, memory formation, and social processing, suggesting that these animals were capable of complex learned behaviors and cultural transmission of information between generations. The social learning that occurred within late Cretaceous dinosaur communities may have accelerated the pace of behavioral evolution, allowing successful innovations to spread rapidly through populations. Young animals that could learn from experienced adults would have possessed significant survival advantages, creating selection pressures that favored enhanced learning abilities and social cooperation. These cognitive advances had profound effects on ecosystem dynamics, as intelligent predators and prey engaged in increasingly sophisticated behavioral arms races. The ability to learn from experience and modify behavior based on changing circumstances would have made late Cretaceous ecosystems more dynamic and unpredictable than those dominated by animals with purely instinctual behaviors. The legacy of late Cretaceous innovation can be seen in the modern world through the continued success of birds, the direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs. many of the advanced features that characterize modern bird intelligence, including their problem-solving abilities, social behaviors, and communication systems, likely had their origins in the Late Cretaceous period. The study of Late Cretaceous ecosystems continues to reveal new insights into the potential for life to achieve remarkable levels of complexity and sophistication. These ancient worlds demonstrate that intelligence, cooperation, and ecological integration can evolve to degrees that challenge our assumptions about what's possible in natural systems. As we continue to uncover the secrets of these remarkable creatures and their world, we gain new appreciation for the incredible diversity of life that our planet has supported throughout its history. The Late Cretaceous represents not just a high point in dinosaur evolution, but a testament to the creative power of natural selection and the endless possibilities that emerge when life is given the time and opportunity to explore new evolutionary pathways. The environmental conditions that made such spectacular diversity possible were the result of millions of years of gradual change and occasional catastrophic events that reset the evolutionary playing field. The warm global climate, high sea levels, and abundant plant productivity created an energy-rich world where large body sizes and complex behaviors could evolve and persist. But this remarkable world was living on borrowed time, though its inhabitants had no way of knowing what was coming. The very success of late Cretaceous ecosystems, with their incredible diversity and ecological complexity, may have made them more vulnerable to the catastrophic changes that were about to reshape the planet forever. The interconnected nature of late Cretaceous ecosystems meant that the success of one species could ripple through entire food webs, creating cascading effects that shaped the evolution of countless other organisms. When a new predatory strategy evolved in one lineage, it didn't just affect that species' immediate prey, it influenced the defensive adaptations of multiple herbivore groups, which in turn affected plant evolution, which then impacted the entire ecosystem's structure and function. This ecological interconnectedness reached levels of complexity that modern ecosystems rarely achieve. Consider how the evolution of more efficient dental batteries in hadrosaurs didn't just allow these animals to process tougher vegetation, it also changed the competitive landscape for other herbivores, altered plant community composition through selective feeding pressure, and created new opportunities for predators that specialized in hunting these abundant, well-fed prey animals. The feedback loops between predators and prey during this period created what scientists now recognize as an evolutionary accelerator. Each improvement in hunting efficiency drove corresponding improvements in defensive capabilities, which then selected for even better hunting strategies. This arms race proceeded at a pace that may have been unprecedented in Earth's history, fueled by the abundant energy available in late Cretaceous ecosystems. The diversity of hunting strategies that evolved during this period reflects the incredible creativity of natural selection when given abundant resources and evolutionary time. Some predators became ambush specialists, developing camouflage patterns and patient hunting behaviors that allowed them to remain motionless for hours while waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Others evolved into persistence hunters, using superior endurance to wear down faster but less stamina-equipped prey over long chases. Pack hunting reached new levels of sophistication among late Cretaceous predators, with some species developing communication systems that allowed for coordinated attacks involving dozens of individuals. These hunting packs could take down prey animals that were many times larger than any individual pack member, using tactics that required planning, role specialization, and precise timing. The evolution of these complex hunting behaviors had profound effects on prey species, driving the development of equally sophisticated defensive strategies. Some herbivorous dinosaurs evolved early warning systems that could detect approaching predators from remarkable distances, using enhanced vision, hearing, and even seismic detection to identify threats before they became immediate dangers. Herd dynamics among prey species became incredibly complex during this period, with different species developing specialized roles within mixed herds. Some animals served as sentries, positioning themselves at the edges of feeding groups where they could watch for predators while others fed. Different species had different sensory strengths, creating multi-layered detection networks that were far more effective than any single species could achieve alone. The seasonal behaviors of late Cretaceous animals created temporal patterns that structured entire ecosystems around predictable cycles of movement, breeding, and resource availability. These patterns weren't just random responses to environmental changes. They were sophisticated strategies that maximize survival and reproductive success, while minimizing energy expenditure and predation risk. Migration timing became so precise that some species could predict optimal departure dates weeks in advance, using environmental cues that modern scientists are still trying to understand. These animals developed internal biological clocks that could integrate multiple environmental signals, including day-length changes, temperature fluctuations, and even subtle shifts in magnetic field orientation. The navigational abilities required for these long-distance migrations were nothing short of extraordinary. Some dinosaurs traveled thousands of miles between seasonal ranges, crossing mountain ranges, river systems, and changing vegetation zones while maintaining precise directional orientation. The mechanisms they used for navigation likely included solar compasses, stellar navigation, magnetic field detection, and landmark recognition systems that rivaled those of modern migratory animals. The social structures that evolved to support these migrations were equally impressive. Leadership hierarchies determined migration routes and timing, with experienced individuals guiding entire populations along pathways that had been refined over countless generations. The knowledge required for successful migration was passed down through cultural transmission, creating information networks that spanned multiple generations and vast geographic areas. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of late Cretaceous social behavior was the development of interspecies cooperation. Fossil evidence suggests that different dinosaur species sometimes formed mixed herds that provided mutual benefits through complementary defensive capabilities, feeding strategies, and sensory abilities. These multi-species aggregations created superorganisms that were more than the sum of their parts. The communication systems that evolved to coordinate these complex social interactions were incredibly sophisticated. Beyond the musical calls of hadrosaurs, many dinosaur species developed visual signaling systems using color changes, posture displays, and elaborate behavioral rituals. Some species may have even developed primitive forms of symbolic communication, using specific gestures or movements to convey complex information about environmental conditions, resource locations, or threat assessments. The cognitive demands of processing and responding to these complex social signals drove the evolution of increasingly sophisticated brain structures in late Cretaceous dinosaurs. Neural networks dedicated to social processing, emotional recognition, and behavioral prediction became more elaborate, creating animals whose mental capabilities approached those of modern social mammals. These advances in social cognition had cascading effects throughout late Cretaceous ecosystems. Animals that could form alliances, remember individual relationships, and predict the behavior of others gained significant advantages in competition for resources, mates, and territory. The social intelligence arms race that resulted may have been one of the primary drivers of brain evolution during this period. The reproductive strategies that evolved during the late Cretaceous reflect the incredible diversity of solutions that natural selection discovered for the fundamental challenge of passing genes to the next generation. Some species invested heavily in parental care, producing relatively few offspring, but providing them with extensive resources and protection. Others adopted quantity over quality strategies, producing large numbers of offspring with minimal parental investment. The mating systems of late Cretaceous dinosaurs were correspondingly diverse, ranging from monogamous pairs that remained together for life to complex polygamous arrangements where dominant males controlled access to multiple females. Some species developed elaborate courtship rituals that involved construction of display structures, performance of complex dances, or presentation of food gifts to potential mates. The sexual selection pressures created by these mating systems drove the evolution of some of the most spectacular features seen in late Cretaceous dinosaurs. Elaborate crests, colorful plumage, and impressive body sizes often served primarily as advertisements of genetic quality rather than practical survival tools. The peacock-like displays of some dinosaur species may have rivaled those of modern birds in their complexity and beauty. Competition between males for mating opportunities sometimes led to the evolution of specialized combat structures and behaviors. Some dinosaur species developed reinforced skulls for headbutting contests, while others evolved elaborate horn arrangements specifically designed for ritualized combat. These contests rarely resulted in serious injury, instead serving as relatively safe ways to establish dominance hierarchies and mating rights. The parental care systems that evolved during this period were remarkably sophisticated, involving not just feeding and protection of young, but also complex teaching behaviors that transmitted crucial survival skills from parents to offspring. Young dinosaurs learned hunting techniques, predator recognition, social behaviors, and migration routes through extended periods of interaction with experienced adults. Some species developed communal child-rearing systems where multiple adults shared responsibility for protecting and feeding young animals. These cooperative breeding arrangements allowed for more intensive care of offspring while reducing the burden on individual parents. The social bonds formed during these extended care periods may have persisted throughout the animals' lives, creating extended family networks that provided lifelong support and protection. The diversity of developmental strategies among late Cretaceous dinosaurs reflects the incredible flexibility of reptilian life history patterns. Some species hatched as miniature adults, immediately capable of independent survival, while others emerged in highly underdeveloped states that required extensive parental care before they could function independently. Growth rates varied dramatically between species, with some animals reaching adult size within a few years, while others continued growing throughout their entire lives. These different growth strategies created complex age class dynamics within populations, as animals of different sizes and developmental stages occupied different ecological niches and faced different survival challenges. The metabolic innovations that supported these diverse life history strategies were equally remarkable. Some late Cretaceous dinosaurs may have possessed metabolic flexibility that allowed them to adjust their energy expenditure based on environmental conditions and resource availability. This physiological adaptability would have provided significant advantages during seasonal changes or periods of resource scarcity. The digestive systems of herbivorous dinosaurs became increasingly sophisticated during this period, with some species developing multi-chambered stomachs that allowed for complex fermentation processes. These digestive innovations permitted the processing of plant materials that were previously inedible, opening up new ecological niches and reducing competition between different herbivore species. The symbiotic relationships between dinosaurs and their gut microorganisms likely played crucial roles in these digestive innovations. Different bacterial communities would have allowed dinosaurs to process different types of plant material, creating opportunities for dietary specialization that reduced interspecific competition and increased overall ecosystem productivity. Some herbivorous dinosaurs may have even developed the ability to modify their gut microbiome composition based on seasonal changes in plant availability. This kind of digestive flexibility would have allowed single species to exploit multiple food sources throughout the year, reducing their vulnerability to environmental fluctuations and resource shortages. The waste products generated by these massive herbivores had profound effects on late Cretaceous ecosystems. Dinosaur dung served as fertilizer that enhanced plant growth in areas where large herds congregated, creating feedback loops that increased the carrying capacity of preferred habitats. Some plant species may have evolved specifically to take advantage of these nutrient-rich waste deposits. The transportation of seeds through dinosaur digestive systems created unprecedented opportunities for plant dispersal across vast distances. Plants that could survive passage through reptilian guts gained access to new habitats hundreds of miles from their parent populations accelerating the spread of successful species and increasing overall plant diversity. These dispersal networks connected plant populations across entire continents, creating genetic exchange opportunities that maintained species diversity and evolutionary potential. The loss of these dispersal mechanisms following the extinction of large dinosaurs may have contributed to the reduced diversity of some plant groups in post-Cretaceous ecosystems. The engineering challenges faced by the largest Late Cretaceous dinosaurs required solutions that pushed the limits of what's physically possible in terrestrial vertebrates. The structural support systems needed to maintain upright posture in animals weighing dozens of tons required innovations in bone architecture, muscle arrangement, and joint design that have never been equaled in subsequent evolutionary history. The cardiovascular systems of these giants had to overcome gravitational challenges that would defeat most modern animals. Blood pressure requirements for pumping blood to heads positioned 30 or 40 feet above the heart would have necessitated specialized heart structures and vascular adaptations that we're only beginning to understand through biomechanical modeling. The respiratory systems required to oxygenate such massive bodies likely incorporated air sac networks similar to those found in modern birds but scaled up to unprecedented dimensions. These breathing systems would have been marvels of biological engineering, capable of moving enormous volumes of air while maintaining the efficiency needed to support high metabolic rates. The neural control systems required to coordinate movement in such large animals would have been incredibly complex. The time delays inherent in transmitting nerve signals across such vast distances would have required sophisticated predictive mechanisms and automated reflexes that could maintain balance and coordination without conscious control. The sensory challenges faced by these giants were equally remarkable. Eyes positioned dozens of feet above the ground would have provided unique perspectives on their environments while creating new challenges for depth perception and visual processing. The integration of visual information from such elevated viewpoints would have required specialized neural adaptations. The acoustic properties of calls produced by such large animals would have been extraordinary, with some vocalizations potentially traveling dozens of miles through late Cretaceous landscapes. These long-distance communication capabilities would have allowed for coordination of activities across vast territories and may have played crucial roles in migration timing and route selection. The thermal regulation challenges faced by animals with such extreme body sizes required innovative solutions that combined behavioral, physiological, and anatomical adaptations. The thermal inertia of massive bodies would have provided stability against temperature fluctuations, while creating challenges for rapid behavioral responses to changing environmental conditions. Some of the largest dinosaurs may have used their enormous size as a competitive advantage, becoming ecosystem engineers that could modify their environments in ways that were impossible for smaller animals. Tree-knocking behaviors could have created clearings that benefited other species, while feeding activities could have maintained open habitats that would otherwise have been reclaimed by forests. The Late Cretaceous period also witnessed the evolution of some of the most extreme specializations ever seen in vertebrate history. Some dinosaur lineages became so highly adapted to specific ecological niches that they developed anatomical features that seem almost alien by modern standards. These extremist specialists often achieved remarkable success within their narrow niches while becoming vulnerable to environmental changes that affected their specific resource requirements. The evolutionary experimentation that characterized this period created animals that challenged conventional understanding of reptilian capabilities. Some dinosaurs developed features typically associated with mammals, including possible fur-like coverings, complex social behaviors, and extended parental care. Others evolved bird-like characteristics, including sophisticated respiratory systems, advanced sensory capabilities, and complex communication systems. The boundaries between different major groups of animals became increasingly blurred during the Late Cretaceous, as convergent evolution produced similar solutions to common challenges across multiple lineages. The result was an ecosystem where traditional taxonomic categories became less meaningful than functional roles and ecological relationships. The diversity of locomotor adaptations during this period was particularly impressive, with different species developing specialized solutions for movement through various types of terrain and environmental conditions. Some dinosaurs became highly efficient long-distance travelers, while others specialized in navigating dense forest environments or rocky, mountainous terrain. Aquatic and semi-aquatic dinosaurs developed swimming abilities that rivaled those of modern marine mammals, using powerful tail propulsion, paddle-like limbs, and streamlined body shapes to move efficiently through water. These adaptations allowed dinosaurs to exploit aquatic resources that were unavailable to their terrestrial relatives. Climbing specialists evolved among smaller dinosaur species, developing grasping hands, flexible joints, and specialized claws that allowed them to navigate complex three-dimensional environments in forest canopies. These arboreal dinosaurs may have played crucial roles in seed dispersal and forest ecosystem dynamics. The flying abilities of pterosaurs reached new heights of sophistication during the Late Cretaceous, with some species developing soaring capabilities that allowed them to travel vast distances with minimal energy expenditure. These aerial specialists could exploit food resources scattered across enormous territories, while avoiding many of the terrestrial predators that threatened ground-dwelling animals. The sensory capabilities of flying reptiles were correspondingly advanced, with enhanced vision for spotting prey from great distances and sophisticated spatial processing abilities for navigating complex three-dimensional environments. Some species may have possessed echolocation capabilities similar to those of modern bats, allowing them to hunt effectively in low-light conditions. The diversity of feeding strategies among late Cretaceous animals reflects the incredible variety of food resources available during this period. Some species became ultra-specialists, focusing on single types of prey or plant material, while others developed generalist strategies that allowed them to exploit whatever resources were most abundant at any given time. Filter-feeding dinosaurs evolved specialized structures for processing large volumes of water to extract small prey items, while others developed probe-feeding adaptations for extracting insects and other small animals from crevices and burrows. Some species became nectar feeders, developing long tongues and specialized digestive systems for processing high-energy plant sugars. The chemical processing capabilities of late Cretaceous animals were equally diverse, with some species developing resistance to plant toxins that would be lethal to other animals. These chemical specialists could exploit food resources that were protected by defensive compounds, giving them access to energy sources that were unavailable to competitors. The waste processing and nutrient cycling performed by late Cretaceous animal communities were crucial for maintaining ecosystem productivity. The enormous quantities of organic matter processed by these animals created nutrient distribution networks that connected different habitats and maintained soil fertility across vast areas. The late Cretaceous world was a testament to the creative power of evolution when given abundant energy, diverse environments, and extended periods of relative stability. The innovations that emerged during this period established many of the fundamental patterns that would influence the subsequent evolution of life on Earth, even as the specific lineages that created them faced extinction. The legacy of late Cretaceous innovation can be seen not just in the birds that survived the end Cretaceous extinction, but in the ecological principles and evolutionary strategies that continue to shape modern ecosystems. The arms races between predators and prey, the complex social behaviors, and the sophisticated sensory systems that evolved during this period established templates that would be rediscovered and refined by subsequent evolutionary radiations. The study of late Cretaceous ecosystems continues to provide insights into the potential for life to achieve remarkable levels of complexity and sophistication under favorable conditions. These ancient worlds serve as natural experiments that demonstrate what's possible when evolutionary processes are given the resources and time needed to explore new possibilities. As our understanding of these remarkable ecosystems continues to grow through new fossil discoveries and improved analytical techniques, we gain deeper appreciation for the incredible diversity of solutions that evolution can produce. The late Cretaceous stands as perhaps the greatest example of biological creativity and ecological complexity in Earth's history, a time when life itself seemed to be experimenting with every conceivable form and function. The environmental conditions that supported this extraordinary diversity were the product of unique geological and climatic circumstances that may never be repeated in Earth's future. The combination of warm global temperatures, high atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, elevated sea levels, and continental configurations created opportunities for evolutionary innovation that were unprecedented and may remain unmatched. Yet, even as these magnificent ecosystems reached their peak of diversity and complexity, they remained vulnerable to the catastrophic changes that would soon reshape the planet. The very success of late Cretaceous life, with its large body sizes, complex ecological relationships, and high energy requirements, may have made these ecosystems more susceptible to the environmental disruptions that were about to unfold. The story of the Late Cretaceous serves as both an inspiration and a warning, demonstrating the incredible potential for life to flourish under favorable conditions, while reminding us of the fragility of even the most successful and diverse ecosystems when faced with rapid environmental change. The lessons learned from studying these ancient worlds continue to inform our understanding of modern ecological challenges and the importance of preserving the complex relationships that sustain contemporary biodiversity. The interconnected web of late Cretaceous life created cascading effects that rippled through every level of these ancient ecosystems. When a single innovation emerged in one species, it didn't exist in isolation. Instead, it triggered a domino effect of evolutionary responses that could reshape entire biological communities over relatively short geological time frames. Picture how the development of enhanced pack hunting strategies in dromaeosaurid predators didn't just affect their immediate prey. These coordinated hunting techniques forced herbivorous species to develop more sophisticated anti-predator behaviors, which in turn influenced their feeding patterns and habitat selection. As prey animals spent more time in defensive formations and less time foraging efficiently, plant communities experienced different browsing pressures, leading to shifts in vegetation structure that then affected countless other species, from insects to small mammals. The ripple effects extended even further as changes in vegetation patterns influenced water retention, soil composition, and microclimate conditions. Areas that had once supported dense forests might become more open due to altered herbivore behavior, creating opportunities for different plant species while eliminating habitats for forest-dwelling animals. These habitat changes could then influence migration routes, breeding locations, and seasonal behavior patterns across multiple species. The speed at which these ecological changes occurred was remarkable by modern standards. Unlike today's ecosystems, which often take millennia to adjust to major changes, late Cretaceous communities seem capable of rapid reorganization. This flexibility may have been one of the key factors that allowed such incredible diversity to persist, despite constant evolutionary pressure and environmental fluctuations. The energy flow through late Cretaceous ecosystems was unlike anything we see in modern environments. The combination of warm global temperatures, high atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, and abundant sunlight created conditions where primary productivity reached extraordinary levels. Plants grew faster, larger, and more luxuriantly than their modern counterparts, creating the energy base that could support ecosystems dominated by massive animals with enormous caloric requirements. This energy abundance had profound effects on animal behavior and evolution. Species could afford to invest in energetically expensive adaptations like elaborate display structures, complex social behaviors, and rapid growth rates, because the underlying productivity of their ecosystems could support these investments. The result was a world where evolution could explore possibilities that would be energetically prohibitive under less favorable conditions. Consider the implications of an ecosystem where a single large herbivore might consume several hundred pounds of vegetation daily. The plant communities that evolved to sustain this level of herbivory had to develop unprecedented regeneration capabilities, creating forests and grasslands that could recover from intensive browsing pressure in time frames, measured in weeks rather than years. The nutrient cycling in these hyper-productive ecosystems created feedback loops that further enhanced their carrying capacity. The massive quantities of organic waste produced by large dinosaur herds provided fertilizer that boosted plant growth, which in turn supported even larger animal populations. This positive feedback system may have been one of the driving forces behind the trend toward gigantism that characterized late Cretaceous fauna. The seasonal patterns that governed these ecosystems were equally extraordinary in their scale and precision. Migration corridors stretched across entire continents, with some routes covering thousands of miles and involving millions of individual animals. The timing of these movements was so precise that entire ecosystems would shift their activity patterns to take advantage of the predictable influx of migrating species. The environmental cues that triggered these massive movements were incredibly subtle, requiring animals to detect and interpret complex combinations of astronomical, meteorological, and biological signals. Some species may have been capable of predicting optimal migration timing weeks or even months in advance, using internal biological calendars that integrated multiple environmental variables with remarkable accuracy. The logistical challenges of coordinating these continent-spanning migrations were staggering. Imagine the communication networks required to synchronize the movements of herds that might stretch for hundreds of miles, with led animals making navigation decisions that would affect millions of followers. The social structures that evolved to manage these movements represented some of the most sophisticated organizational systems ever developed by non-human animals. The predatory species that evolved to exploit these migration patterns developed equally remarkable adaptations. Some became migration specialists, timing their own movements to intersect with prey herds at predictable locations and times. These predators had to balance their energy expenditure carefully, as the feast or famine nature of migration hunting required them to survive extended periods between major feeding opportunities. The scavenging opportunities created by these massive migrations supported entire guilds of specialized carrion feeders. The mortality associated with long-distance travel, particularly among young, old, or sick individuals, provided predictable food sources that could sustain populations of animals that might otherwise struggle to find sufficient nutrition. The competition between different scavenger species led to remarkable behavioral innovations. Some developed the ability to detect carrion from enormous distances, using enhanced olfactory capabilities or visual acuity to locate feeding opportunities before competitors arrived. Others evolved social systems that allowed them to defend valuable carcasses through coordinated group behaviors. The processing of these massive carcasses required specialized anatomical adaptations. Some scavengers developed powerful jaw muscles and reinforced skulls that allowed them to crack open the largest bones to access nutrient-rich marrow. Others evolved more delicate feeding apparatus designed for accessing soft tissues and internal organs before larger competitors could claim these prime food sources. The decomposition of organic matter in late Cretaceous ecosystems was accelerated by the warm, humid climate that characterized much of this period. However, the sheer volume of organic material being processed sometimes overwhelmed even these enhanced decomposition rates, leading to the formation of organic-rich deposits that would eventually become some of the world's most productive fossil fuel reserves. The insect communities that evolved to exploit these abundant organic resources were incredibly diverse and specialized. Some species became carrion specialists, developing life cycles perfectly synchronized with the decay process. Others focused on processing dung, with some species becoming so specialized that they could only survive on the waste products of specific dinosaur species. The pollination networks that connected flowering plants during this period were equally sophisticated. As flowering plants diversified and spread, they created new opportunities for insects and other pollinators. Some relationships became so specialized that particular plant species could only be pollinated by specific insect species, creating intricate webs of mutual dependence. The coevolution between plants and pollinators during this period was one of the most important evolutionary innovations in Earth's history. The efficiency gains achieved through specialized pollination relationships allowed flowering plants to colonize new habitats and develop new reproductive strategies that gave them significant advantages over earlier plant groups. The seed dispersal networks that evolved during this period were equally remarkable. Many dinosaur species became unwitting partners in plant reproduction, carrying seeds in their digestive systems across vast distances before depositing them in new locations. Some plants may have evolved specifically to take advantage of these dispersal opportunities, developing seeds that could survive passage through reptilian digestive systems. The forest dynamics of the late Cretaceous were shaped by these complex plant-animal interactions in ways that created some of the most diverse terrestrial ecosystems in Earth's history. The combination of rapid plant growth, efficient nutrient cycling, and diverse herbivore communities created forest structures that supported unprecedented levels of biodiversity. Canopy complexity reached extraordinary levels as different plant species competed for access to sunlight while providing habitat for countless other organisms. The three-dimensional structure of these forests created numerous microhabitats, each supporting specialized communities of insects, small vertebrates, and other organisms. The understory communities were equally diverse, with different layers supporting different assemblages of species. Ground-dwelling organisms exploited the rich organic soils created by rapid decomposition, while mid-story species took advantage of the complex branching patterns created by diverse woody plants. The seasonal changes in these forest communities were dramatic, with some areas experiencing complete transformations as deciduous species shed their leaves and herbivore population migrated to different feeding areas. These seasonal dynamics created temporal niches that different species could exploit, further increasing overall ecosystem diversity. The aquatic ecosystems embedded within these terrestrial landscapes were equally complex and productive. Rivers, lakes, and wetlands supported diverse communities that served as crucial links between terrestrial and marine environments. Many dinosaur species depended on these freshwater habitats for drinking water, thermoregulation, and access to aquatic prey. The fish communities in late Cretaceous freshwater systems were incredibly diverse, including both primitive groups and early representatives of modern families. Some species reached enormous sizes, creating predation opportunities for large aquatic reptiles and semi-aquatic dinosaurs. The amphibian communities of this period were more diverse than their modern counterparts, filling ecological roles that would later be occupied by mammals and birds. Some species remained tied to aquatic environments throughout their lives, while others became increasingly terrestrial, developing adaptations that allowed them to exploit resources in forest and grassland habitats. The invertebrate communities in these aquatic systems were the foundation for complex food webs that extended far beyond the water's edge. Emerging insects provided crucial food sources for terrestrial predators, while aquatic larvae served as prey for fish and other aquatic predators. The chemical composition of late Cretaceous water bodies was different from modern systems, with higher temperatures and different dissolved mineral concentrations creating unique ecological conditions. These chemical differences influenced everything from oxygen availability to the types of organisms that could survive in different aquatic habitats. The seasonal flooding patterns that characterized many late Cretaceous landscapes created dynamic aquatic systems that expanded and contracted dramatically throughout the year. These fluctuations created opportunities for organisms that could rapidly colonize temporary habitats, while challenging species that required stable aquatic environments. The transition zones between aquatic and terrestrial habitats were particularly important for ecosystem functioning. These ecotones supported high levels of biodiversity, while serving as corridors for genetic exchange between different populations and species. The late Cretaceous climate system was characterized by complex interactions between atmospheric composition, ocean circulation patterns, and continental configurations that created conditions unlike anything in Earth's subsequent history. The absence of polar ice caps and the presence of inland seas created temperature and precipitation patterns that supported tropical and subtropical conditions across much broader geographic ranges than today. These climatic conditions had profound effects on atmospheric circulation patterns, creating wind systems that influenced everything from migration routes to seed dispersal patterns. The strength and direction of prevailing winds affected the distribution of rainfall, the formation of weather systems, and the transport of airborne organisms across vast distances. The seasonal variations in these climate systems, while less extreme than modern patterns, still created predictable cycles that organisms could exploit. Many species developed life cycles precisely timed to take advantage of seasonal peaks in resource availability or favorable environmental conditions. The carbon cycle during this period was fundamentally different from modern systems, with much higher atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations driving enhanced plant growth while contributing to the greenhouse conditions that characterized the era. The storage of carbon in living biomass reached levels that have never been equaled in subsequent periods. The ocean circulation systems of the Late Cretaceous transported heat and nutrients in patterns that supported marine ecosystems of unprecedented productivity. The warm polar regions created circulation patterns that distributed tropical conditions much more broadly than in modern oceans. These oceanic systems supported marine food webs that culminated in predators of extraordinary size and diversity. The energy available in these marine ecosystems allowed for the evolution of predatory strategies and body sizes that exceed anything seen in modern oceans. The interaction between marine and terrestrial systems was more extensive during the Late Cretaceous than in subsequent periods. Higher sea levels created numerous embayments and inland seas that served as conduits for genetic exchange between marine and freshwater organisms. The coastal ecosystems that developed along these extensive shorelines were among the most productive and diverse habitats on the planet. The mixing of marine and terrestrial nutrients created conditions that supported exceptional levels of primary productivity, which in turn supported complex food webs that included both aquatic and terrestrial predators. The Late Cretaceous period also witnessed remarkable innovations in defensive strategies, as prey species evolved increasingly sophisticated methods for avoiding predation. These defensive innovations went far beyond simple armor or weaponry, to include complex behavioral strategies, chemical defenses, and even possible forms of mimicry and deception. Some herbivorous species developed the ability to detect predator scent marks and chemical signals, allowing them to avoid areas where hunting pressure was high. These chemical communication networks may have extended across entire ecosystems, creating information systems that could warn of predator presence across vast distances. The timing of feeding activities became increasingly sophisticated as prey species learned to exploit temporal windows when predator activity was reduced. Some species became primarily nocturnal, while others concentrated their feeding during periods when their primary predators were engaged in other activities. The development of sentinel behaviors, where certain individuals in a group specialized in watching for predators while others fed, created early warning systems that could detect threats from remarkable distances. These sentinel systems sometimes involve multiple species working together, with different animals contributing different sensory capabilities to collective defense efforts. The alarm call systems that evolved during this period were incredibly sophisticated, with some species developing specific calls for different types of threats. These vocal warning systems could convey detailed information about predator identity, location, and behavior, allowing appropriate defensive responses to be initiated quickly and efficiently. The group formation strategies that evolved among prey species created defensive configurations that maximized protection while minimizing interference with feeding and movement. Some herds developed rotating leadership systems that distributed the risks associated with being at the front of a group, while others organized themselves into defensive formations that could rapidly transform from feeding configurations to protective arrangements. The escape strategies employed by different prey species were equally diverse and sophisticated. Some relied on pure speed, developing locomotive adaptations that allowed them to outrun most predators over short distances. Others became endurance specialists, using superior stamina to exhaust pursuing predators during extended chases. The use of terrain features for defensive purposes became highly refined during this period. Some species became experts at exploiting natural barriers, water features, and elevation changes to gain advantages over pursuing predators. The knowledge of optimal escape routes and defensive positions was passed down through generations, creating cultural traditions that enhanced survival rates. The camouflage and concealment strategies that evolved during the Late Cretaceous were remarkably sophisticated, with some species developing color patterns and behavioral adaptations that made them nearly invisible in their preferred habitats. These concealment strategies often involve complex behaviors that coordinated movement patterns with environmental conditions to maximize effectiveness. Some species may have developed forms of aggressive mimicry, using deceptive signals to confuse or misdirect potential predators. These strategies could have included false alarm calls, mock injury displays, or even mimicking the appearance or behavior of more dangerous species. The Late Cretaceous period represents the culmination of over 150 million years of dinosaurian evolution, a time when these remarkable animals had refined their adaptations to levels of sophistication that would never again be achieved by reptilian life forms. The diversity of solutions they developed to the challenges of survival created ecosystems that were more complex and energy-rich than any that followed. The innovations that emerged during this extraordinary period established many of the fundamental ecological principles that continue to govern modern ecosystems. The predator-prey dynamics, the competitive strategies, the cooperative behaviors, and the environmental adaptations that characterized Late Cretaceous life provided templates that would influence the evolution of mammals, birds, and other groups long after the dinosaurs themselves had vanished. The study of these ancient ecosystems continues to reveal new insights into the potential for life to achieve remarkable levels of organization and complexity under favorable conditions. Each new fossil discovery adds another piece to our understanding of how these incredible communities functioned and what made them so successful for so many millions of years. The Late Cretaceous world stands as perhaps the greatest testament to the creative power of evolution when given abundant resources, diverse environments, and sufficient time to explore new possibilities. It was a time when life itself seemed to be experimenting with every conceivable form and function, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in terrestrial ecosystems. Yet, even as these magnificent communities reached unprecedented levels of diversity and ecological integration, they remained subject to the same fundamental laws that govern all living systems. Their success was built upon specific environmental conditions that, while stable for millions of years, were not permanent features of Earth's systems. The complexity and interconnectedness that made Late Cretaceous ecosystems so successful may have also made them more vulnerable to rapid environmental change. The specialized relationships, the energy-intensive adaptations, and the finely tuned ecological balances that characterize these communities would soon face challenges that would test their resilience in ways they had never experienced before. The story of late Cretaceous life serves as both inspiration and caution, demonstrating what life can achieve under optimal conditions, while reminding us that even the most successful ecosystems remain subject to forces beyond their control. The legacy of these ancient worlds lives on in the principles they established and the descendants they left behind, continuing to influence the evolution of life on our planet today. The late Cretaceous witnessed evolutionary experiments so audacious they challenge our understanding of what's biologically possible. Among the most spectacular were the ceratopsians, horned giants that transformed defense into high art. These weren't simply large animals with protective features randomly attached. They were living masterpieces of evolutionary engineering, where every horn, frill, and armor plate had been perfected through millions of years of life and death struggles. Imagine encountering a fully grown Triceratops in its natural habitat, standing nearly 10 feet tall at the shoulder and stretching 26 feet from nose to tail. This 9-ton behemoth would have dominated any landscape it inhabited. But what truly set these animals apart wasn't just their impressive size, it was the sophisticated integration of offensive and defensive capabilities that made them among the most formidable herbivores ever to walk the earth. The skull of Triceratops alone tells an incredible story of evolutionary innovation. Measuring over 8 feet in length, it represented nearly 1/3 of the animal's entire body length. This wasn't evolutionary excess or wasteful design. Every inch of that massive skull served specific purposes that enhanced the animal's survival prospects in a world filled with deadly predators. The 3 horns that gave these dinosaurs their name were precision-engineered weapons capable of delivering devastating attacks. The single nose horn could punch through the hide of any attacking predator, while the 2 longer horns above the eyes provided a formidable deterrent to frontal assaults. But these weren't just defensive tools. Evidence suggests they functioned primarily in spectacular combat rituals between competing males. Picture 2, massive Triceratops bulls meeting during mating season, their horns locked in contests that would have shaken the ground beneath their feet. These battles weren't random acts of aggression, but carefully choreographed displays of strength and dominance that determined mating rights and territorial control. The reinforced bone structure around their horn bases shows clear evidence of repeated impact stress, confirming that these weapons saw regular use in high-intensity combat. The bony frill that extended behind each skull wasn't merely decorative either. This impressive structure served as both shield and display board, protecting the vulnerable neck region while providing a canvas for species recognition patterns and individual identification marks. Some evidence suggests these frills may have been brightly colored, creating visual displays. Skin covering these magnificent creatures adds another layer to their remarkable that could be seen from remarkable distances across late Cretaceous landscapes. The story. Recent fossil discoveries have revealed that at least some ceratopsian species possessed bristle-like structures covering portions of their bodies. These weren't primitive fur precursors, but specialized integumentary structures that may have served multiple functions, including thermoregulation, sensory enhancement, and possibly even defensive purposes. The combination of massive size, bone armor, formidable weapons, and specialized skin coverings created animals that were virtually invulnerable to most predators. Yet fossil evidence shows that even these living fortresses couldn't always escape the attention of the period's most determined hunters. Triceratops skulls, bearing the distinctive bite marks of Tyrannosaurus rex, tell tales of epic confrontations between titans that must have been among the most spectacular predatory encounters in Earth's history. Some specimens preserve evidence of successful escapes, with partially healed bite wounds that speak to the incredible resilience and survival instincts of these animals. Others capture the final moments of these ancient battles, with severed heads and shattered bones that demonstrate the overwhelming power that apex predators could bring to bear when hunting opportunities arose. But the ceratopsians were just one branch of the late Cretaceous herbivore revolution. The period also produced some of the most bizarre and specialized plant eaters that ever existed, creatures that pushed the boundaries of anatomical possibility in their quest for evolutionary advantage. Consider the remarkable Tyrannosaurus, a dinosaur that looked like it had been assembled from the nightmares of multiple horror movie directors. These giants could reach heights of 16 feet and possessed claws that stretched nearly 3 feet in length, making them appear like prehistoric versions of the most terrifying movie monsters ever conceived. Despite their absolutely terrifying appearance, these massive creatures were actually gentle herbivores, using their enormous claws for purposes that scientists are still debating. The most likely explanations involve pulling down high branches for feeding, digging into ant and termite nests for protein supplements, defending against predators, and possibly even assisting with resting by allowing the animals to hang from sturdy tree branches like enormous prehistoric sloths. The mystery of why a plant-eating dinosaur would need such massive weapons has puzzled paleontologists for decades. The claws were clearly energetically expensive to grow and maintain, suggesting they provided significant survival advantages that justified their metabolic cost. The fact that these weapons evolved and persisted over millions of years indicates they were highly effective tools for whatever purposes they served. The feeding strategies employed by these claw-bearing giants were probably as sophisticated as their anatomy was spectacular. They could reach vegetation at heights that were inaccessible to other herbivores, giving them access to food sources that remained untapped by competing species. This feeding advantage may have been crucial during times when ground-level vegetation was heavily browsed or seasonally unavailable. The defensive capabilities provided by those massive claws would have made Tyrannosaurus a formidable opponent for even the largest predators. A well-placed swipe could inflict devastating wounds on an attacking tyrannosaur, making these herbivores extremely dangerous prey despite their plant-eating lifestyle. This combination of size, reach, and weaponry created animals that occupied a unique ecological niche as herbivores that could fight back effectively against apex predators. Even more remarkable were the hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs that represented perhaps the most successful large herbivores of the Late Cretaceous period. These animals combined impressive size with sophisticated feeding adaptations and complex social behaviors that made them incredibly abundant across Late Cretaceous landscapes. The most striking feature of many hadrosaur species was their elaborate cranial ornamentation. These weren't simple decorative crests, but sophisticated acoustic instruments capable of producing complex musical calls that could travel landscapes. Different species produced for miles across prehistoric different musical signatures, creating prehistoric soundscapes filled with haunting melodies that announced the presence of these magnificent creatures. The internal structure of these crests contained complex air passages that functioned like wind instruments, allowing hadrosaurs to produce a range of tones and harmonics that conveyed detailed information about species identity, individual recognition, emotional state, and environmental conditions. Scientists have actually reconstructed these ancient songs using computer modeling and fossil evidence, revealing musical capabilities that rivaled those of modern birds. But perhaps even more impressive than their musical abilities were the dental innovations that made hadrosaurs so successful as large herbivores. Their mouths contained some of the most sophisticated food processing systems ever evolved, with hundreds or even thousands of teeth arranged in complex grinding batteries that could handle the toughest plant materials. These dental systems operated like biological conveyor belts, with new teeth continuously moving into position as older ones wore down from constant use. The efficiency of this replacement system ensured that hadrosaurs always maintained optimal cutting and grinding surfaces, allowing them to process plant materials that would have been indigestible to animals with simpler dental arrangements. The social behaviors that coordinated hadrosaur feeding activities were equally sophisticated. Large herds could strip entire forest areas of preferred vegetation while maintaining complex communication networks that coordinated movement patterns and warned of approaching dangers. These social feeding strategies allowed hadrosaurs to exploit plant resources more efficiently than solitary herbivores, while providing mutual protection against the numerous predators that stalked Late Cretaceous landscapes. The migration patterns of hadrosaur herds created some of the most spectacular wildlife movements in Earth's history. Thousands of individuals would travel together along established routes that connected seasonal feeding areas, separated by hundreds of miles. These migrations weren't random wanderings, but precisely timed journeys that followed environmental cues with remarkable accuracy. The leadership structures that governed these massive migrations were incredibly complex, with experienced individuals guiding entire populations along pathways that had been refined over countless generations. The knowledge required for successful migration was passed down through cultural transmission, creating information networks that connected different populations across vast geographic areas. The predators that evolved to exploit these predictable movements developed equally sophisticated hunting strategies. Some became migration specialists, timing their own movements to intersect with prey herds at optimal locations and times. These predators had to balance their energy expenditure carefully, as the seasonal nature of migration hunting required them to survive extended periods between major feeding opportunities. The most successful of these predatory specialists were the Tyrannosaurs, apex hunters whose combination of size, power, intelligence, and sensory capabilities made them among the most effective predators in Earth's history. These weren't just oversized carnivores with big teeth. They were sophisticated hunting machines whose every feature had been refined for maximum killing efficiency. Tyrannosaurus rex, the most famous of these predators, possessed sensory capabilities that exceeded those of most modern predators. Their enormous eyes provided exceptional visual acuity, while their sense of smell was so refined that they could detect carrion from miles away. Their hearing was equally impressive, capable of detecting low-frequency sounds that would have been inaudible to their prey. The intelligence of these apex predators may have been their most dangerous feature. Brain endocasts revealed neural structures that supported complex behaviors, including problem-solving, spatial memory, and possibly even strategic planning. These weren't reactive animals following simple instincts. They were thinking predators capable of adapting their hunting strategies to different situations and prey types. The hunting techniques employed by tyrannosaurs were as diverse as they were effective. Some individuals specialized in ambush hunting, using their understanding of prey behavior patterns to position themselves along frequently used travel routes. Others became persistence hunters, using their superior endurance to exhaust faster but less stamina-equipped prey during extended pursuits. The social dynamics of tyrannosaur hunting remain hotly debated among paleontologists. Some evidence suggests these predators occasionally hunted in coordinated groups, sharing information about prey locations and possibly even cooperating in complex hunting strategies. Other evidence points to more solitary hunting behaviors, with individuals defending large territories against competitors. The bite force generated by these massive predators was truly extraordinary, capable of crushing the bones of the largest prey animals with ease. But tyrannosaurs didn't rely solely on brute force. They developed sophisticated techniques for delivering precisely targeted attacks that could bring down heavily armored prey with minimal energy expenditure. The competition between tyrannosaurs and their prey drove an evolutionary arms race that produced increasingly sophisticated adaptations on both sides. As predators developed better hunting strategies, prey animals evolved more effective defensive systems. As defensive capabilities improved, predators responded with new innovations that could overcome even the most formidable protection. This constant escalation created ecosystems where no species could rest on its evolutionary laurels. Success required continuous adaptation and innovation, driving rates of evolutionary change that may have been unprecedented in Earth's history. The fossil record from this period shows evidence of rapid morphological changes that speak to intense selective pressures operating across entire ecosystems. The smaller predators of the Late Cretaceous were no less remarkable for their reduced size. Velociraptors, despite being much smaller than their Hollywood depictions suggest, were among the most dangerous hunters of their era due to their intelligence, speed, and pack hunting capabilities. These feathered killers possessed sickle-shaped claws that could grow over 2.5 inches long, curved killing instruments perfectly designed for gripping and slashing. But their most dangerous weapon wasn't their claws or razor-sharp teeth. It was their ability to coordinate attacks with other pack members, bringing down prey animals many times larger than any individual could handle alone. The pack hunting strategies employed by these predators were incredibly sophisticated, involving role specialization, coordinated timing, and communication systems that allowed for complex group behaviors. Some individuals served as pursuit specialists, using their speed to drive prey toward ambush positions. Others functioned as attack coordinators, timing group assaults for maximum effectiveness. The social intelligence required for these hunting strategies was remarkable, involving the ability to predict the behavior of both prey and pack mates while adjusting individual actions to support group objectives. This level of cognitive sophistication suggests that some late Cretaceous predators possessed problem-solving abilities that approached those of modern social mammals. The diversity of hunting strategies among late Cretaceous predators created ecosystems where no prey animal was entirely safe, regardless of its size, armor, or defensive capabilities. This predation pressure drove the evolution of increasingly sophisticated defensive strategies among prey species, creating feedback loops that accelerated evolutionary innovation across entire biological communities. The aquatic ecosystems of the late Cretaceous were equally spectacular, supporting marine reptiles that exceeded anything in modern oceans in terms of size, diversity, and predatory capability. The warm seas of this period were incredibly productive, creating food webs that could support predators of unprecedented dimensions. Mosasaurs, the serpentine sea monsters of the late Cretaceous, were among the most successful marine predators ever evolved. These weren't just large lizards that happened to live in water. They were perfectly adapted marine hunters whose every feature had been refined for life in oceanic environments. The largest mosasaurs could exceed 56 feet in length, making them among the most massive marine predators in Earth's history. Their streamlined bodies, powerful tails, and paddle-like limbs made them incredibly efficient swimmers, capable of pursuing prey across vast oceanic distances. The feeding strategies of these marine giants were as impressive as their size. They possessed massive jaws lined with teeth specifically designed for cutting and crushing, capable of processing prey ranging from small fish to other large marine reptiles. Some species became specialists in hunting heavily armored prey like marine turtles, developing jaw mechanics specifically adapted for crushing protective shells. The hunting behaviors of mosasaurs were correspondingly sophisticated. They could hunt in both open water and coastal environments, using different strategies depending on prey type and environmental conditions. Some became ambush predators, lying motionless near the surface before striking at unsuspecting prey. Others developed pursuit hunting techniques, using their superior speed and endurance to run down faster but less stamina-equipped victims. The social behaviors of these marine predators remain largely mysterious, but fossil evidence suggests that at least some species engaged in complex social interactions. Mass mortality sites preserve multiple individuals of different age classes, hinting at possible family groups or seasonal aggregations for feeding or reproduction. The sensory capabilities of mosasaurs were highly advanced, allowing them to navigate and hunt effectively in environments where vision was often limited. Enhanced hearing, lateral line systems for detecting water movement, and possibly even electroreception capabilities would have made these predators incredibly effective at locating prey in murky or deep water conditions. The reproductive strategies of marine reptiles created unique challenges that drove remarkable evolutionary innovations. Unlike their terrestrial relatives, these animals had to solve the problems of reproduction in aquatic environments without access to traditional nesting sites. Some species evolved live birth capabilities, giving birth to fully developed young that could immediately begin independent life in marine environments. This reproductive strategy eliminated the vulnerability associated with eggs and nesting sites while ensuring that offspring were born into their optimal habitat conditions. The parental care behaviors of marine reptiles may have been more sophisticated than previously imagined. Some species might have provided protection and guidance to their young during crucial early life stages, teaching hunting techniques and helping them avoid the numerous dangers present in late Cretaceous marine ecosystems. The diversity of marine ecosystems during this period supported predator guilds that were far more complex than those found in modern oceans. Different species specialized in hunting different types of prey, from small schooling fish to large marine reptiles, creating multi-layered predation networks that maximize the utilization of available food resources. The competition between marine predators drove evolutionary innovations that pushed the limits of what was possible in aquatic environments. Some species developed enhanced speed capabilities that allowed them to outrun most prey and competitors. Others evolved superior maneuverability that made them incredibly effective in confined coastal waters. The late Cretaceous marine ecosystems also supported some of the most spectacular filter-feeding organisms ever evolved. These animals developed sophisticated feeding apparatus that could process enormous volumes of water to extract small prey items, creating ecological roles that have no modern equivalents. The coral reef systems of this period were more extensive and diverse than their modern counterparts, supporting complex communities that included both familiar groups and extinct lineages that filled ecological roles unlike anything seen today. These reef systems served as nurseries for countless marine species while providing habitat complexity that supported unprecedented levels of biodiversity. The interaction between marine and terrestrial ecosystems was more extensive during the late Cretaceous than in subsequent periods. Higher sea levels created numerous coastal environments where marine and terrestrial organisms regularly interacted, creating opportunities for evolutionary innovation and ecological experimentation. Many dinosaur species spent significant portions of their time in coastal environments, feeding on marine organisms or using coastal habitats for thermoregulation and protection from terrestrial predators. These behavioral adaptations created ecological connections that linked marine and terrestrial food webs in complex ways. The seasonal movements of marine organisms influenced the behavior of terrestrial species, with some dinosaurs timing their migrations to take advantage of seasonal abundance in coastal food sources. These connections created continent-spanning ecological networks that integrated marine and terrestrial systems into unified super-ecosystems. The Late Cretaceous period represents the culmination of over 150 million years of dinosaurian evolution, a time when these remarkable animals had achieved levels of diversity, complexity, and ecological integration that would never again be equaled by reptilian life forms. Every major terrestrial and marine habitat had been colonized by specialized species that had refined their adaptations to extraordinary levels of sophistication. The innovations that emerged during this period established fundamental ecological principles that continue to influence modern ecosystems. The predator-prey dynamics, competitive strategies, cooperative behaviors, and environmental adaptations that characterized late Cretaceous life created templates that would guide the evolution of mammals, birds, and other groups long after the dinosaurs themselves had vanished. Yet, even as these magnificent ecosystems reached unprecedented levels of success, they remained subject to the same natural laws that govern all living systems. Their remarkable achievements were built upon specific environmental conditions that, while stable for millions of years, were not permanent features of Earth's biological systems. The very complexity and interconnectedness that made late Cretaceous ecosystems so successful may have also increased their vulnerability to rapid environmental change. The specialized relationships, energy-intensive adaptations, and finely balanced ecological interactions that characterize these communities would soon face challenges that would test their resilience in ways they had never experienced. The stage was being set for one of the most dramatic transitions in Earth's history, though the magnificent creatures of the late Cretaceous had no way of knowing that their extraordinary world was about to change forever in ways that no amount of evolutionary innovation could prepare them for. The climate that supported these extraordinary ecosystems was fundamentally different from anything our planet experiences today. Picture a world where ice caps were virtually non-existent, where palm trees swayed in polar breezes, and where tropical temperatures extended far beyond the equatorial regions we associate with such conditions now. This wasn't just a warmer version of our modern world. It was an entirely different climate system driven by atmospheric conditions that created opportunities for life that have never been repeated in Earth's subsequent history. Carbon dioxide levels soared to concentrations that were many times higher than today's levels, creating a greenhouse effect that transformed the entire planet into a biological paradise. The absence of polar ice created ocean circulation patterns that distributed heat more evenly across the globe than we see in modern systems. Warm currents carried tropical conditions far into what we would consider Arctic regions, while the lack of cold polar water meant that oceanic systems operated under fundamentally different principles. These warm ocean currents created coastal environments that supported marine ecosystems of unprecedented productivity. The combination of elevated temperatures and enhanced nutrient circulation meant that marine food webs could support predators and filter feeders of dimensions that modern oceans simply cannot sustain. The atmospheric composition during this period didn't just affect temperature patterns. The elevated carbon dioxide levels created conditions where plant growth could proceed at rates that seem almost impossible by today's standards. Forests grew faster, taller, and more densely than their modern counterparts, creating the primary productivity base that could support ecosystems dominated by massive animals. But this enhanced plant growth came with its own complexities. The rapid growth rates meant that plant tissues often had different nutritional compositions than their modern equivalents, requiring herbivorous dinosaurs to develop specialized digestive systems that could extract maximum nutrition from these fast-growing food sources. The seasonal patterns during this period were less extreme than those we experience today, but they still created predictable cycles that organisms could exploit. The reduced temperature variation between seasons meant that biological activity could continue year-round in most regions, eliminating the dormancy periods that characterize modern temperate ecosystems. This constant biological activity created environments where energy flow through ecosystems never experienced the seasonal bottlenecks that limit productivity in contemporary systems. Predators could hunt continuously, herbivores could feed year-round, and reproductive activities could occur whenever conditions were optimal, rather than being restricted to brief seasonal windows. The weather patterns of the Late Cretaceous were dominated by different atmospheric circulation systems than those that characterize modern climate. The absence of large ice sheets meant that global wind patterns operated according to different principles, creating storm systems and precipitation patterns that supported different types of vegetation and habitat structures. Rainfall distribution was generally more uniform across different geographic regions, eliminating many of the desert conditions that characterize modern continental interiors. This more even precipitation distribution meant that productive ecosystems could exist across much broader geographic ranges than we see today. The storm systems that did develop during this period were often more intense than their modern counterparts, driven by the enormous amounts of energy available in the atmosphere-ocean system. These powerful weather events could rapidly redistribute nutrients across vast areas while creating disturbance regimes that maintained habitat diversity. The volcanic activity that characterized much of the Late Cretaceous added another dimension to environmental variability. Massive eruptions could alter regional climates for years or decades, creating environmental challenges that tested the adaptability of even the most successful species. Some volcanic events created new land areas that could be colonized by pioneering species, while others eliminated established habitats and forced organisms to adapt or relocate. The ability to respond quickly to these volcanic disturbances was crucial for long-term survival in Late Cretaceous ecosystems. The ashen gases released by volcanic eruptions could affect atmospheric conditions across entire continents, creating temporary cooling episodes that interrupted the generally warm conditions of the period. Species that could tolerate these periodic environmental fluctuations had significant advantages over those that required stable conditions. The interaction between volcanic activity and biological systems sometimes created positive feedback loops that enhanced ecosystem productivity. Volcanic ash provided mineral nutrients that could boost plant growth, while volcanic activity could create new aquatic habitats that supported diverse biological communities. The continental configurations during the Late Cretaceous created geographic patterns that influenced both climate and biological evolution in profound ways. The positions and orientations of land masses affected ocean circulation patterns, atmospheric flow, and the distribution of different habitat types across the globe. The presence of extensive inland seas created unique environmental conditions that have no modern equivalents. These shallow marine environments supported highly productive ecosystems while serving as corridors for biological exchange between different oceanic regions. The geographic isolation of different continental areas allowed for independent evolutionary experiments that produced remarkable diversity in biological solutions to similar environmental challenges. Different continents developed their own unique assemblages of species while maintaining some connections through occasional dispersal events. The mountain-building processes that were active during this period created topographic diversity that supported habitat complexity across multiple elevation zones. Different altitudes provided different climate conditions, allowing species to adapt to specific environmental niches while maintaining connectivity through elevational migration. The river systems that drained these diverse landscapes created corridors that connected different habitat types while providing aquatic environments that supported their own specialized biological communities. These freshwater systems served as highways for biological exchange while providing resources that terrestrial organisms could exploit. The coastal environments, where terrestrial and marine systems met, were among the most productive and diverse habitats on the planet. The mixing of nutrients from terrestrial runoff with marine productivity created conditions that supported exceptional levels of biological activity. These coastal zones were dynamic environments where sea level fluctuations, tidal patterns, and seasonal changes created constantly shifting habitat mosaics. Species that could adapt to these changing conditions had access to some of the richest food resources available during this period. The plant communities that evolved under these favorable conditions created terrestrial ecosystems that were more structurally complex and productive than their modern counterparts. The rapid growth rates and diverse species compositions created forest systems that supported unprecedented levels of habitat complexity. Different plant species evolved to exploit different light conditions, soil types, and moisture regimes, creating three-dimensional habitat structures that provided numerous ecological niches for animals. The vertical stratification of these plant communities was more pronounced than in most modern forests, creating distinct microenvironments from ground level to canopy top. The root systems of late Cretaceous plants created underground networks that were equally complex and important for ecosystem functioning. These subterranean communities supported diverse assemblages of soil organisms while creating nutrient cycling networks that enhanced overall ecosystem productivity. The chemical interactions between different plant species created allelopathic relationships that influenced community structure and species composition. Some plants produced compounds that inhibited competitors, while others formed mutually beneficial chemical partnerships that enhanced growth and survival. The coevolution between plants and their animal partners reached new levels of sophistication during this period. Pollination relationships became increasingly specialized, with some plant species evolving flowers that could only be pollinated by specific animal species. These specialized relationships created intricate webs of mutual dependence that connected plant and animal communities in complex ways. The loss of any single species could have cascading effects throughout these interconnected networks, making the entire system both highly productive and potentially vulnerable to disruption. The seed dispersal networks that evolved during this period were equally sophisticated and extensive. Different animal species became specialized for dispersing different types of seeds, creating transportation networks that connected plant populations across vast geographic areas. Some of these dispersal relationships involved long-distance transport that allowed plant species to colonize new habitats hundreds or thousands of miles from their parent populations. This long-distance dispersal capability was crucial for maintaining genetic diversity and allowing rapid colonization of newly available habitats. The herbivorous dinosaurs that participated in these plant-animal relationships weren't passive partners in the process. Many species developed behavioral preferences for particular plant species, creating selection pressures that influenced plant evolution in specific directions. The feeding behaviors of large herbivores had profound effects on plant community structure and composition. Some plant species evolved to benefit from herbivore feeding, developing growth patterns that were actually enhanced by browsing pressure. The nutrient cycling performed by these massive herbivores created fertility patterns that influenced entire ecosystem structures. Areas where large herds congregated regularly became nutrient hotspots that supported enhanced plant growth and increased biological productivity. The waste products generated by dinosaur communities represented enormous transfers of organic matter and nutrients that had no equivalent in modern ecosystems. The decomposition of this organic material supported complex communities of decomposer organisms while creating soil conditions that enhanced plant growth. The spatial patterns of nutrient distribution created by dinosaur movements resulted in landscape-scale gradients that influenced vegetation patterns and habitat structure. Areas along migration routes often developed distinctive plant communities adapted to the periodic influx of nutrients and disturbance. The seasonal timing of these nutrient inputs created temporal patterns that many other organisms learned to exploit. Some plant species timed their growth cycles to coincide with periods of maximum nutrient availability, while others adapted to take advantage of the reduced competition that followed major disturbance events. The insects and other invertebrates that evolved to exploit these abundant organic resources became incredibly diverse and specialized. Some species became experts at processing fresh organic matter, while others specialized in different stages of the decomposition process. These decomposer communities were crucial for maintaining the rapid nutrient cycling that supported the high productivity of late Cretaceous ecosystems. Without their efficient processing of organic waste, the system would have quickly become clogged with undecomposed material. The pollination services provided by late Cretaceous insects were equally crucial for ecosystem functioning. Many insect species developed specialized relationships with particular plant species, creating pollination networks that were far more complex than those found in modern ecosystems. Some of these pollination relationships involved insects that were much larger than their modern counterparts, allowing them to serve as flowers that would have been inaccessible to smaller pollinators. The coevolution between these large insects and their plant partners created some of the most spectacular flowering displays in Earth's history. The predatory insects of this period were equally remarkable, with some species developing hunting strategies and anatomical adaptations that exceeded anything seen in modern insect communities. These predators played crucial roles in controlling herbivorous insect populations while serving as food sources for larger predators. The aquatic insect communities were particularly diverse and important for ecosystem functioning. Many species had complex life cycles that connected aquatic and terrestrial environments, creating pathways for energy and nutrient transfer between different habitat types. The emergence patterns of aquatic insects created seasonal pulses of food availability that many terrestrial predators learned to exploit. Some dinosaur species may have timed their movements to coincide with major insect emergence events, creating behavioral connections between different components of the ecosystem. The social insects that evolved during this period developed some of the most complex colonial behaviors known from the fossil record. Some species constructed elaborate nest structures that could house millions of individuals while maintaining sophisticated division of labor and communication systems. These social insect colonies became important components of late Cretaceous ecosystems, processing enormous quantities of organic matter while creating habitat structures that other organisms could exploit. The mounds and galleries created by social insects provided nesting sites, shelter, and foraging opportunities for numerous other species. The defensive strategies employed by these colonial insects included chemical warfare systems that could repel even large vertebrate predators. Some species developed the ability to produce toxic compounds that made their colonies virtually invulnerable to attack. The fungal communities that supported much of the decomposition in late Cretaceous ecosystems were equally diverse and important. These organisms developed specialized relationships with both plants and animals that enhanced nutrient cycling while providing additional food sources for various consumers. Some fungi formed mycorrhizal partnerships with plant roots that greatly enhanced nutrient uptake and plant growth rates. These symbiotic relationships may have been crucial for supporting the rapid plant growth that characterized this period. Other fungi specialized in decomposing the enormous quantities of woody material produced by late Cretaceous forests. These wood-decomposing species were essential for preventing the accumulation of dead plant material that could otherwise have disrupted ecosystem functioning. The bacterial communities that supported digestion in herbivorous dinosaurs were incredibly diverse and specialized. Different bacterial assemblages allowed different dinosaur species to process different types of plant material, creating opportunities for dietary specialization that reduced interspecific competition. These gut bacterial communities were passed from parents to offspring, creating inheritance systems that were crucial for digestive function. The loss of appropriate bacterial partners could severely compromise an animal's ability to extract nutrition from its preferred food sources. The nitrogen-fixing bacteria that lived in association with some plant species were particularly important for ecosystem productivity. These organisms could convert atmospheric nitrogen into forms that plants could use, providing crucial nutrients that might otherwise have limited plant growth. The complex interactions between all these microbial communities created biogeochemical cycles that operated at scales and intensities that have no modern equivalents. The rates of nutrient cycling and energy transfer in these systems supported levels of biological productivity that seem almost impossible by contemporary standards. The late Cretaceous period represents the culmination of biological experimentation that had been proceeding for over 100 million years of dinosaur evolution. Every major ecological niche had been explored. Every available energy source had been exploited, and every possible solution to the challenges of survival had been tested and refined. The result was a world that functioned according to ecological principles that we can barely imagine today. The energy flow, nutrient cycling, and biological interactions that characterized these ancient ecosystems created conditions where life could achieve levels of diversity, complexity, and spectacle that have never been equaled in subsequent periods. Yet, this extraordinary world was built upon environmental conditions that, while stable for millions of years, were not permanent features of Earth's systems. The very success of late Cretaceous life, with its massive body sizes, complex relationships, and high energy requirements, may have made these ecosystems more vulnerable to the dramatic changes that were about to reshape the planet. The interconnectedness that made these ecosystems so productive also created dependencies that could not be quickly replaced if key components were lost. The specialized relationships, the finely tuned interactions, and the complex food webs that supported such incredible diversity would soon face challenges that would test their resilience in ways that no previous environmental changes had ever done. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic transformations in Earth's history. Though the magnificent creatures that inhabited this ancient world had no way of knowing that their time of unprecedented success was about to end in ways that would reshape the future of life on our planet forever. The morning sun cast long shadows across a coastal lagoon where the drama of late Cretaceous life unfolded with breathtaking intensity. Here, in this prehistoric theater, every sunrise brought new stories of survival, predation, and the endless struggle for existence that defined this remarkable period. Picture a young hadrosaurus approaching the water's edge, its distinctive helmet-like crest catching the early light. This wasn't just any ordinary drinking expedition. The creature's specialized cranial structure functioned as a sophisticated breathing apparatus, allowing it to submerge its head while searching for aquatic prey in the nutrient-rich waters. The lagoon teemed with life forms that would seem alien to modern observers. Fish species that had evolved in the warm Cretaceous seas swam in schools so dense they darkened the water, while primitive rays glided along the sandy bottom. Above the surface, insects buzzed and darted with predatory precision that made the air itself seem dangerous. But this peaceful morning scene was about to transform into something far more dramatic. Deep beneath the lagoon surface, something massive stirred in the depths. The water began to ripple with subtle disturbances that spoke of a presence far larger and more dangerous than any fish. The Late Cretaceous stands as the greatest testament to life's creative potential that our planet has ever witnessed. For over 35 million years, these magnificent ecosystems flourished with a diversity and complexity that challenges our very understanding of what's biologically possible. From the thunderous migrations of horned giants to the haunting songs of duck-billed dinosaurs echoing across prehistoric landscapes, this was a world where evolution itself seemed to be painting its masterpiece. But even the most spectacular show must come to an end, and the creatures of this ancient world were about to face their final curtain call.